do love you, and you know there's something very important we need to do as soon as possible.
What's that?
Podcast.
Now, boys.
Podcast.
I obviously, that was going to be the line that you used for the start of this episode. We've all known that since time immemorial. So I took the liberty preparing a few alternates.
I just had to get out of the way.
I know we do. It's absolutely pro forma. It had to be done.
Yeah.
I have to adopt my best Alice Hartford voice
here. The podcast is making you aggressive.
That's a good one. Not on my list.
I'm glad it's on your list because that's my personal favorite line.
When she is having her little titties squeezed, do you think she ever has any fantasies about what Handsome Dr. Bill's podcast might be like?
A demented line delivery, let's say. That's a perfect example of that's what you do on the 800th.
Right, 100%. It grows for me every time because I always forget that she says titties like that, and I'm always like, oh, damn.
It's the Pacino. Great. Where it's just like, I'm so tired of saying this line over and over again.
I don't need to know what grows for you every time when you watch that scene. Victor Ziegler says, Bill, I don't think you realize how much trouble you got yourself into last night just by going over there. Who do you think those people were? Those were not just some ordinary people. If I told you the name of their podcasts, no, I'm not going to tell you the names, but if I did, I don't think you'd sleep so well at night.
Red Scare.
And finally, the truth is nothing happened to her after you left that party that hadn't happened to her before. She got her brains podcasted out, period.
I've seen one or two things in my life, but never anything like this, and never such podcasts.
You know what this movie...
I may have to see the podcast.
This movie has good lines.
Yeah.
It does have good lines. They're just all delivered in a way where you're like, huh.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think to say that way. And that's part of the magic, right?
No, there was a J.J. Birch, our beloved researcher, in his dossier, included a lot of the negative reviews from when this movie came out by top critics at top outlets. Like, this is not a well-reviewed film. No, it was dismissed by almost everyone at the time. We'll talk about it. But there was, I want to just get this verbatim because there was a negative review that had, I think, one of the best positive descriptors of what I think works about this movie.
It's right at the bottom here. I'll find it. Right at the bottom of the DOS. Are you talking about Gleiberman's review or Denby's?
I can't find it. There was this fucking review line that's like, it feels like a dream that's already been analyzed.
Ooh, that is pretty
by your therapist.
Yeah.
You're not even watching a dreamlike state.
I'll give it
You're
to
watching
you.
Someone. Yeah.
It's from Gleiberman.
Thank you.
Our cohort in the New York Film Critics Circle, and I shall say no more.
Brother in arms.
I've always been an ardent Kubrick fanatic, but Eyes Wide Shut, a movie that views sexuality as not just an experience, but a ritual, has an oddly formal, closed-off quality, like a dream that has already been analyzed on a shrink's couch.
Yeah, I mean...
And yet I disagree so fundamentally with that, because I found in returning this movie on virtually a daily basis...
Or I disagree with Owen Gleiberman.
I mean, no disrespect to Owen, but every day, for the last 23 years, that this is a movie that I find so open and inviting. It's such an invitation to project yourself onto it, which is by design, and goes back even to the casting of the movie. We'll get into that. But
absolutely. But I think to other David's point, we got two Davids on the show today. Not to front load the material here. I don't view that as a negative quality, but I think when David's talking about like how odd the delivery is in this film, the visual look of this film that's so unlike anything, where you're like, what is the weirdness hanging over this movie? It is that thing where like it doesn't quite feel like a dream. It feels like an analytical exploration of a dream.
I mean, the whole movie exists in that liminal space between dreaming and reality. By design, it's not supposed to feel too much like either at any point. And the performances are very keyed into that. Whether or not Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise knew at the time that's what they were going for.
Right. It feels like describing a dream to someone.
Before we do anything.
Yes.
We
have to fuck.
We do have to fuck. We should.
How
many years in? Come on.
8, almost 8.
Let's just do it.
The will they won't they tension has been driving people up the wall.
I'll fucking do it.
Ben and I are sitting on the other ends of the table just staring at each other between this. Like, help. Put on the Jocelyn poop music.
And you know what you guys need to do. Fuck.
Well, I'm the peeper, so I'm
you just watch it.
Yeah. We got a closet.
We're wearing our masks.
Only one awards body dared have the bravery to give Sydney Pollack a supporting actor nomination.
The Hollywood Film Critics Association.
No. Only one. Pollack gets one total. I mean, obviously, this film was not like lauded and did not get a ton of critical or whatever nominations. But
that's the thing that should have happened. New York Film Critics?
The Blockbuster Entertainment Awards nominated Sydney Pollack for Favorite Supporting Actor, Drama/Romance. He lost to Dennis Leary for The Thomas Crown Affair. an underrated performance.
I mean, sure, no argument there.
Drama Signs of Romance.
3 nominees.
Yeah.
Leary, Pollack, and Paul Newman for Message in a Bottle. Can't say I remembered he was in that one.
They did so many genres.
They did, but nonetheless, Pollack got a block. Do you think he got a phone call from his agent? Sydney, I know you're hard at work on The Interpreter or Random Hearts or whatever, but...
I've been watching a lot of Inside the Actors Studio recently. I've brought this up on other episodes. Yes. It's been like a go-to-sleep YouTube rabbit hole of mine. Lipton, when he does his introductions, because the first couple of years of the show, it's mostly people who are in the actor studio.
Right.
And then the pedigree is high enough, the clout is big enough that he can get the biggest movie stars in the world.
Right.
So when he has someone like Cruise on, he lists like all their accolades, and he will say, Mission Impossible 2, for which he received a 5th Blockbuster Entertainment nomination. Like,
he does
information that Cruise is learning for the first time.
So many of these, he always fucking mentions their MTV Movie Awards, their Blockbusters, and sometimes even their Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. Yeah. Like if someone like Cruise has like 2 nominations, 3 nominations, but he wants to pad it out to put him on the level of Paul Newman.
What's the statue for the Nickelodeon Awards?
It was a blimp.
Hell yeah.
It was a blimp. I believe the Blockbuster was sort of like a big clear, sort of like Perspex, videotape, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Let's see.
Yes, you're right.
I should get one.
I want one.
Nickelodeon was the blimp, and it was a kaleidoscope. That was the thing. When people went and accepted it, they'd always hold up to their eye and go, whoa. And I'd be like, what the fuck is inside there? And the answer is it was just a kaleidoscope built into a blimp, like a fiberglass blimp.
Feels like something you could like buy on eBay for $100.
We're in a studio that desperately needs to be decorated, but what a space! I mean, this is
making a lot of progress.
My first time here. I do want to say the first time I was on this podcast,
the unnamed Blank Check Studios.
Name.
First time I was on this podcast, we recorded it in like a sock drawer.
We recorded it in a
space
was there. That maybe covered this table we are sitting
closeted at the now defunct UCB office.
And now we are sitting in a building made out of marble. Not the whole building is made out of marble, but there are parts of it.
Yes.
I took an elevator.
You sure did?
Yeah.
Don't give it all away.
I'm sitting in a chair where Richard Lawson himself once sat. The seat is still warm.
He hasn't sat in this chair yet.
Lawson.
He's not done it in studio.
No. You are our first in studio?
You're our first in studio guest, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you're
the first person I texted to say like, hey, take the elevator, blah floor,
Yeah, so you're christening this seat guest-wise.
I'm breaking it in. All right.
Yeah. We should put tape on it.
It does have that new podcast studio.
Yeah, we
smell.
Right.
It does. And we got a couple things. We got a movie shirt.
Yeah, that's Chris White.
Wilson the volleyball from Castaway.
Wilson the volleyball.
We got a Hello Fennel embroidery there.
We got Ben Hosley.
We got King Ralph on VHS.
We have the envelope. The Griffin will make a joke about beta movement.
We sure do. That's up there.
We've got a nice little collection. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a lot of
one of my Red Boys. Remember the Red Boys?
Yeah, Red
Boys. Of course.
And some Legos and the Wreck-It Ralph arcade. The Fix It Felix?
Fix It Felix.
There you go.
Nothing like describing something visually.
People can't see
pictures. We'll post pictures. People will love it.
I've been trying to one-up the envelope bit, not on this podcast, but in real life.
In life, impossible.
And the only way I think I could potentially do it is when I learned that a friend of mine is having a child, I wrote the name of the child to our other friends on a text message thread, and I'm waiting until a few weeks from now to finally find out. I'm very confident.
Wow.
But we'll see.
That's cool.
We'll see.
I mean,
calling it.
Yeah, cool. I should mention this is a Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
Podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on. David's like miming jabs.
I'm like John Holmes.
Judo
I'm like doing karate.
Yeah. He's
or
so
Elvis
proud of how quickly he did it.
Yeah.
Podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers, like being arguably the most acclaimed, revered, studied, analyzed American director of all time. And are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they bounce after their premature death. People are befuddled by the movie, and then like 20 years later, basic consensus comes around to it being a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Well,
I would say, by and large,
I feel like 10 years ago it was.
It was like, you know what secretly is kind of the best?
Yes.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Right. And now I feel like it's almost widely accepted as like, oh, why? No, Eyes Wide Shut rules.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever like quite bona fide film maudit status, where it was like this really cursed thing. I think it was befuddling was exactly the right word for it. But it's definitely quickly sort of after the first wave of critical, machinations went through and people sort of got it out of their system and were able to reckon with what the movie actually is and not what it was sort of mythologically meant to be in their minds.
Yes.
I think its reputation has gone way up. And then now you see it topping lists of the best films of the night. It is the first, and no disrespect to John Carpenter's Vampires or Indiana Jones, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but of the various movies I have been on this podcast to talk about, this is the only one that is on my Sight and Sound list of the 10 greatest films ever.
Crouching Tiger.
You put it on your Sight and Sound?
Not on the tech.
Okay, yeah.
There actually, and I think there are like 2 other films that this podcast has covered that were on my
Are you
top
willing
10.
to say?
Can we guess?
No. What's the fun in that? Okay, one of them's Pinocchio. And the other one,
to be clear.
Yes.
You had to call up in a fury, run to the doors of Sight and Sound, knock. I need to make a change.
I bought a transatlantic flight just so I could go and knock on the door myself.
Who thought that inarguably the greatest film of all time would be released on Disney Plus 1 week after submitting your ballot? You couldn't have known.
I should have waited. It was really, we all should have seen it coming. The writing was on the wall.
Yeah.
I thought about putting this on my Sight and Sound ballot, but I did not.
I expect that this is a movie that will make a imprint on this year's list. Like, it feels like this is the first time the movie's reputation has crested enough to...
Yeah, it was... I mean, certainly a few people, both filmmakers and critics, had cited it 10 years ago. But I do think it's going to be a lot higher.
Like, that's interesting that they put that on there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My experience with this movie is just that, and we can get like the details of it for us all later, but I think that there are, I really have no time for the best versus favorites dichotomy.
Yeah.
It's just not how art works to me. If something is your favorite, is thereby, we're talking about a subjective art form here, it is therefore the best. But I do think there is a discrepancy between the best films, like the films that you would recognize as great, and the ones that sort of become like focal points on the horizon for you over the course of your life, that you can sort of measure where you are in time based on your distance from them and what they reveal about you, and you return to for unknown reasons time after time after time. And this is definitely one of those for me. It's like this, Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yes.
Titanic.
Did you put Forgetting Sarah Marshall on your 10?
I certainly thought
you were
about
close.
it, but I chickened out.
Part of your wedding vows.
Yeah, it was in the wedding. It didn't make the wedding. It didn't make the top 10.
Yeah.
Can I reveal anything from about your list?
Sure. I mean, I don't really care.
You put Titanic on it, right?
I sure did.
Cool.
Yeah. One director put Eyes Wide Shut on their 2012 ballot. Mia Hunson Love.
Oh.
And did any critics put it on?
4 critics, none of whom I know.
Okay.
But just a flutter of interest.
Right.
But I'm sure that will rise.
I think it will have a lot more mention. We should say miniseries on the films of Stanley Kubrick. It's called Pod's Wide Cast. We finally got into the titular movie and his final film.
His final film, Due to Death.
Yes. The greatest career killer, the ultimate cancellation.
It really will set you down. It's really hard to get a project together after.
Okay, but if Death's so canceled, then why are we still talking about him then?
Well, and also Orson Welles, put out a movie after he died. So waiting on you, Stanley.
Well, Stanley did put a movie out after he died. He just couldn't get another one.
That's true.
Greenlit.
That's true. Yeah,
but
that's been a struggle.
We did get AI, which is sort of a happy medium.
I was thinking about this recently. If I told Spielberg that AI is maybe my favorite Spielberg movie, would he be offended in that kind of way of like, that's half Stanley's movie?
I don't think so. I also don't think, I think he would be more offended by you calling it half Stanley's movie.
I wouldn't say, I just wonder if he would say like, I was sort of doing that for Stanley.
I think he'd be happy, especially because it was so,
right.
It had a very similar reaction to this when it came out.
In the early 90s, when he was so fucking fed up of Stanley Kubrick faxing him and faxing him and faxing him.
He would text him, but he would just text, eggplants.
He was like, you know what? I don't need this in my life. And he moved on from Stanley Kubrick.
Our guest today is David Ehrlich, of course, from Indiewire, Fighting in the War Room, and our Crouching Tiger episodes. What were the? I'm sorry, we were just
going to
read the Crystal Skull.
No.
A bunch.
The Village.
The Village,
which is where that was in the UCB.
The Village.
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah.
Howl's Moving Castle.
Yes.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah.
And Vampires.
John Carpenter's.
So now you've got
7
appearances.
A gentleman's 7.
Wow.
Plus a Patreon.
7, yeah, you were on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. You were?
Sure was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good movie.
Yeah, it was back
No
in
memory of that.
Wow.
Back on
Big
Halsey
nice.
Street.
Oh, Spielberg's going to be offended to hear that.
You can now say where you used to live.
Yeah, I lived on Halsey Street.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I mean, it's a long-ass street.
All lovely memories. This is, as I guess we've already sort of recounted talking about Sight and Sound, I think my favorite of the films that I've been on to cover.
This is my favorite of his movies. I said that going into this miniseries. Barry Lyndon was the biggest outlier I hadn't seen. Seeing Barry Lyndon for the first time in theaters, I was like, fuck, Run for Its Money, tough. Rewatching this last night, I was like, I just think this thing has a hold on me that is rare.
I'm obsessed with this movie.
Yeah.
and I have been for a very long time. And I've often also said it's either this or Barry.
Yeah,
we're gonna do our list.
We'll do our list. And we'll forget Darkman.
I'm going to do a list.
Great.
What if to correct the Raimi mistake,
we put Darkman on here?
Let's put Darkman in.
Okay, it'll be sort of around number 9.
Darkman's like, I have to go against 2001.
Yeah, fuck you, Darkman.
Darkman is better than Fear and Desire. I mean, you can feel good about that.
I think Darkman can take Fear and Desire and Lolita and probably Killer's Kiss.
Yeah, I put him above those three.
I think I put him over Spartacus. Maybe
I do
not.
Too. I would. That's my
I would
taste.
watch them fight.
That would be
absolutely
fun.
Watch them.
And
fight.
then Darkman could put on Spartacus's face and say, "I'm Spartacus," and you kind of would be
hard to argue.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
And then the winner has to take on Arnold Vosloo.
That'd be cool too.
They should have done
and Durant.
Spartacus: The Return of Durant.
Eyes Wide Shut: The Return of Durant.
What if Universal started pumping out? Because they obviously the Universal home video department is the one that really is holding the torch for like the Jarhead sequels, the Rob Zombie Monsters movie, the recently announced R.I.P.D. 2.
Hell yeah.
The 47 Ronin 2, like every forgotten movie turned into a franchise.
If they went full Disney Plus on the Eyes Wide Shut extended universe.
Well, I was going to say Spartacus. It would be funny if they today announced like Spartacus 2 Ring of Fire.
I mean, there was a very successful Spartacus TV show.
I'm not talking about that.
No.
I'm saying this is the proper direct-to-video sequel to Stanley Kubrick's Spartacus, recast all roles.
I'm just saying, if Disney Plus dropped tomorrow just a title card that said Nightingale, I would fucking lose my pants.
Yeah.
Lose my pants. Lose my mind, shit my pants, vomit at the same time. I would definitely lose my pants.
No, but I mean, like
the hat trick.
I like the brazenness of an Eyes Wide Shut sequel. Like Eyes Wide Shut 2, like, the masked guy in red or
They should have
whatever,
put the fucking Fidelio party people in Space Jam: A New Legacy. That's a real.
That's a layup.
And they already had the renders from the
That is a layup,
fucking
yeah.
from the censored cut.
Oh,
They have those. They should have put the PS2.
Oh God, what if
level
LeBron? Yeah, he's like running through the
They should have
algorithm.
done,
And he's like, "What's this place?" And everyone's fucking. And he's like, "I gotta get out of here."
Like fake censorship, like Jimmy Kimmel style,
Yes.
but funny. But like,
Right.
just like fake silhouettes in front of completely anodyne things.
Yes.
Like LeBron's going through that. Like, who's singing backwards here? This is weird.
I was watching this on iTunes, and it
Just
was
as Stanley Kubrick intended.
the
It was
fucking-
on iTunes.
it was the R-rated CGI.
Oh, it
bodies
had
cut.
the body.
Because for the last 15 years or so, the unrated cut is pretty much what exists in circulation. So then I was like, fuck, it's on Netflix. Is there any chance Netflix has the nastier cut? And they did.
They do. The Netflix.
It's wild.
Netflix has the unrated cut.
It's wild that Apple doesn't.
Yeah, it is wild that Apple doesn't. I'm shocked by that, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure until Leon Vitali died earlier this year, I mean, you could have gotten a very detailed answer as to why that is.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm actually now wondering if I've ever seen. It's really just that there's just kind of like robed figures standing in front of the action, right? A lot of the time.
The first time they introduce it.
Oh, and there's some naked ladies.
That's the one.
funny.
That's the one where I think I had not seen this version before. Just famously, this movie when it was Kubrick died, delivered the final cut.
We'll get into all of it. Sure.
But, contractually, he had to deliver the movie at an R, and they submitted to the MPAA his cut, and they were like, "There's too much on-screen sex acts.
Right.
Here are the things you need to cover up." So rather than cutting it,
they just put
they
people in front
digitally
of it. I
placed
just
mostly
looked.
robed figures.
Yeah.
The naked
There's a
ladies are the
couple
ones
naked
where you're
ladies,
like,
yeah.
that looks fake. That looks weird. The robed figures are kind of seamless. But you are like compositionally, that's weird. I don't think he would have framed that.
No, he
this way.
probably would not have appreciated any of that.
Yeah.
Right. Although some people have said, like, well, we can talk about it, but there's some speculation that he was planning for because there were these digital renders of the bodies, right?
Right, that he knew that was something he might
You can
have
whip
to
up a digital render of a body in no time.
Yeah. Freaking Kubrick's got those lines.
Control C. I don't know. That actually means something else.
You saw this film in theaters.
July 16th, 1999. You know,
I knew that about you.
I tend to lead with it. It was my my dating profile back in the time.
Your bar mitzvah present.
Sure. I mean,
it was the theme of your party, right?
It was. It was several years before this movie came out, but I knew. I knew that Kubrick had been thinking about making it for almost 50 years.
Yeah.
And so I figured it was going to
And
come out one
you've been
day.
thinking about becoming a man for almost 13 years.
Yeah, and still am.
Yeah.
But we were talking about the movies that sort of orient you in time. And this is something I think about when I listen to this podcast a lot, because Griffin has this sort of like eidetic memory of not just the box offices, but where he saw things and whatnot. And my memory is spotty, but it can be...
It's not a competition.
Well, not about the box office, but where I saw things.
Yeah,
I'm good at that.
But it's like, I don't remember...
I'm not good at the box.
I don't remember like when I became X and Y part of myself when these things happened in my life.
Sure.
But I remember that when Eyes Wide Shut came out, it was important enough to me. I was at a certain point in my interest in film that I took the risk to go to my parents and be like, listen, this is opening the Majestic on Friday. That's the place where the movie Nazi works. He will boot my ass out. He's done it before. This is too important to me.
No Orgy for
Kubrick
you.
is dead. And I was like, I know this is going to be uncomfortable for everybody, but you guys have to take me to see this. And sure enough, they did. I sat between them. The Majestic
Crazy
Theater
that
in
you sat
Stanford.
between them. Sure.
You know what? I just thought that I would further ensconce myself away from the movie Nazi's flashlight, and also wanted to hold each of their hands and squeeze them tightly. No,
it's an R rating. You were allowed with a parent, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I just, but he would look for people, for teens who didn't seem to have chaperones. And you would be like interrogated a bit more.
This guy sucks.
I mean, he called him the movie Nazi for a reason. It's what it said on his regal name tag. And he, and so I did it, and we had all sorts of fun conversations the way home. It was worth it. But
did they like the movie?
I think they were, to go back to the familiar word we've established, befuddled.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was as well. I have some very embarrassing flashbulb memories of like what I was thinking in certain scenes.
Sure.
I think it was the first time since puberty that I had like seen a woman pee.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, it didn't, manifest in any sort of fetish or anything. I just remember being struck by that in the because it's not, and we'll talk about this. It's not a particularly raunchy movie.
No, it's not one of the
erotic
things that
film.
kind of doomed this film upon release.
Sure. But it was certainly something I didn't regret. Was forcing my parents to take me to see this, and we all had a grand old time.
I assume you did not see this in theaters.
I did not. I
would have been like
remember
11.
I was 10.
10 or 11.
Even with movies that I knew no go, my parents aren't going to take me to this, or I'm not specifically interested in seeing this. Whenever my parents went out for a movie night and came back, I was like, "Tell me everything.
Right, give me the report.
I want the report. I want to know where this stands. I want to know what the consensus is. I want to be able to talk about this with adults.
Why is it bad? Yeah,
right." And I just remember them being like, "It's like a mess. It's embarrassing." It was just this total
kind of the take at
right.
the time. Right.
They were just kind of like, doesn't work at all. Which I remember them having a very similar take on AI, but the difference was I had seen that movie before them and was like, "You're wrong."
Right.
It was the first time I was able to sort of push back on something like that. But so I just, most of the adults in my life were that sort of befuddled and dismissive and like, well, it's a shame. It's a shame that's his last movie.
Sure.
What a mess. Made a mistake casting Tom Cruise. Didn't see it until probably about 7 years ago.
Okay.
I got to see it for the first time in a theater.
Oh, cool.
With the unrated cut, the non-CGI body cut.
It's become a perennial here in New York, at least.
Well, because they showed at Christmas a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was 7, maybe even a little bit more than that. And then I've watched it a couple times since then. But it was one of those things, I feel like when I saw it, the tide was starting to turn on it. But it was like, oh, some people stand up for this. I don't know how I'll feel about this. And I saw it in the first like 30, 40 minutes. I was like, okay, I get it. It's interesting, but it's obviously not at the level of the best Kubrick movies. And by the end of it, I was like, this thing fucking rules. It's his best film. Everyone who dislikes this was dumb.
Ben,
did you see it in theaters?
No.
Had you seen it before?
I had seen it before, but I saw it so like late in life. I kind of like wrote it off because of the reputation.
I wrote it off for so long. Yeah. And not only that, when I met someone who liked it, I'd be like, eyes wide shut.
Weird take.
Yeah, and I was like, I haven't fucking seen it. Shut up, Griffin.
But some girl I was dating convinced me to watch.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, wait.
Isn't this movie freaky?
Wait, this movie is full of dang-ass freaks.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
But I love it.
You want to watch that crazy movie with me? That's what you were like.
Yeah.
The one with all the Shostakovich? That's wild.
Didn't see this film in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Roast me now because I lived in the United Kingdom.
I'm sorry.
Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
What?
And it was rated.
They're united?
They sure are for who knows how much longer. Yeah. And it was rated 18. So I couldn't go even with an adult chaperone.
Sure.
You had to be 18.
It was
illegal. No choice. And I do remember my parents seeing it and having, I think, a fairly similar. My mom was very down on Cruise and Kidman, generally.
Sure.
My dad may have been more neutral, but my mom was just sort of like, those are not serious actors. Those aren't movie stars. She loved like Jerry Maguire, but she's just like, get out of here.
Big thing with my parents too. I think Jerry Maguire was the only thing they liked him in. And there, I mean, the most specific takeaway I remember from them was just like, he made a mistake casting them.
Right.
They're out of their league. They can't handle this. They're lightweights.
It's a problem from minute one because of them.
Have you guys talked about how Kubrick basically did a reverse Sims in the trajectory of his life? moving from New York to London. I know you weren't born in London, but moving from New York to London and then literally never leaving.
And also being terrified to get on a plane.
I mean, he did not come. I think the last time he was in the United States was at the premiere of 2001.
Yeah. The man didn't like planes.
It is crazy for what a notorious, a control freak, obsessive about every detail of his film was like, you guys go shoot second unit establishing shots in New York City without me.
Yeah,
I cannot be bothered to get on a plane.
I wonder like how much into the weeds to get, but there's two things that are interesting to me about that. One is that one of the few things that he was still tinkering with that we know for sure at the time of his death was some establishing shots, some second unit shots, which ones he wanted to use of like Ziegler's house and whatnot. And the other was that Leon Vitali, who became the his right-hand man, we talked about in Barry Lyndon, I'm sure, plays the Red Cloak here. His first big job was to go to America and look for kids to play Danny Torrance for The Shining. So it's interesting the way that he thinks about New York, remembers New York. We'll talk about that in the vision of New York in this movie, but it's so predicated on him in the way that the city lives on in its memory, but not in the present tense.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I had like friends. I think I had a friend who saw it when it came out on video. Because it was like, well, doesn't that movie have like an orgy in it? And I remember him being like, and we're talking about like 14-year-old. It was boring. I couldn't really. And so I never went to it as a teen because I was like, I heard it's not even like sexy.
I would have those friends growing up because my mother was so overprotective about what I'd watch. And there'd always be the kid at school whose parents let them watch anything. And there'd be the kid
that kid's the coolest.
Yeah.
I was about to say that kid was me, but I was not the coolest.
But sometimes there'd be the kid who got to see a serious-minded art house, auteur film just because they loved R-rated movies.
Right.
And everyone else was just like, how are the boobs? And I'd be like, is it well made? Right? And Eyes Wide Shut felt like one of those movies where even the kids who could get away with seeing R-rated movies and would see everyone to flaunt it.
It's like a married couple arguing.
Right. Would just be like, I don't know. The boobs are kind of sad.
I felt weird. And so I didn't see this movie until college. I rented it and I watched it on my 8-inch square CRT computer that I had by my bed. As Stanley intended.
Yeah.
And I was like, it really did kind of feel like a secret dream movie.
Yeah.
Like it was, even though it's maybe not the best way to watch that movie, that it was very special to me as just like, I just watched this like secret movie about like a secret world.
They are some of my best first time movie watching experiences were my tiny 8-inch by 8-inch TV VCR combo I had in my bedroom and watching certain movies late at night when I should have been sleeping.
I saw Schindler's List for the first time when I was working at a wood shop at camp over the summer on like a 13-inch TV with the VHR built in.
Yeah.
With the VCR built in.
Yeah.
And over the course of like 3 days, as like younger kids, I was like 12, were making wooden cars in the background and I was not paying attention. They were like using buzzsaws and stuff.
I watched The Godfather on a porch.
Well yes, of course. We know this.
Iconic moment in American history.
Right.
We all learned about that.
Any serious film was watched on a porch. No, but that feeling of like, I'm like 5 inches away from the screen because it's too small. I can't see it otherwise.
Yeah, totally.
And with me also, it was like, the volume has to be low enough that my parents, if they get up to get a glass of water, won't hear that I'm awake.
I had headphones like this, like that I'm wearing right now.
I would do headphones
and I would plug them in to the front of the TV.
Yeah. Isn't that a weird thing to think about?
Yeah. It's all like I watched so much stuff on that tiny TV that I bought at Argos. Shout out Argos. Nobody knows.
Argos, fuck yourself.
Yeah, Argos, fuck yourself. That was a great little thing. I wonder what happened to it. I think I gave it to my roommate.
Argo won Best Picture.
It did. Yeah.
That little thing. That is a great little thing.
We have a phone in this office? I didn't even know.
Yeah, I guess it just came with the office. I hadn't noticed either.
Hello. Click. Hello.
Weird if you say hello before you click.
I do it all the time. I'm so bad at it.
Maybe hang up and then
click.
It just feels okay. Ring, ring, ring.
Click. Hello. Sorry for hanging up on you there before.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Mubi Phone.
Oh, it's Movie Phone.
Yes, I've tried rebranding.
So now you're Mubi Phone?
Well, this is kind of a proof of concept.
Oh, you're hoping they take note.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feels like the cow is getting old.
Yeah, I haven't heard from the cow in a while. Hope the cow's okay.
The bee never stuck.
Oh, forgot about the bee. Gotta be honest.
Mubi.
No offense to the bee. Yeah, right.
Weak bit.
Sure.
Rated
Well,
F.
Well, I guess you're here to tell us that this episode is brought to you by Mubi.
Yes.
Curated streaming service that shows exceptional films from around the globe.
Of course.
Every day they premiere a new film. They've got iconic directors. They've got emerging auteurs. They hand select these films to create their own personal film festival for you, streaming anytime, anywhere.
People used to call me to hear what was playing at specific time.
Yeah, you're a real time guy.
Now you can log on to Mubi and watch whatever you want, when you want to.
And I am looking at the films of the day, just the recent additions.
Today's films are...
So, The 20th Century, the Matthew Rankin film from a few years ago that I have not seen, but everyone told me to watch. I'm going to watch that.
Rated good.
Sure. A Pigeon Sat on a Branch, Reflecting on Existence, the Roy Anderson movie. You ever seen that?
Yes, that hit me right in the feels.
Yes, I mean, it's a depressing one. Ben, you would dig that movie,
Dry,
don't you agree?
existential comedy, like a collection of Far Side strips come to life.
Right,
Interesting.
but like brutally depressing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Swedish style.
Yes. What if Far Side went off its meds?
They've got a bunch of Who, and I apologize, I'm not the best pronouncer of his name, but Hu Xiaoxian,
Let me try pronouncing it.
Oh, boy.
Who? Xiaoshen.
Okay. So The Assassin and Daughter of the Nile, two really great movies by him. This is just their movies of the day, the ones they add every day.
And that's just the day that we're recording this.
Deep
Not
Red,
even the
Deep
day
Red,
it comes out.
The Argento movie, Survival of the Dead, the Romero. Is that the last one? Or was Diary after?
So.
I can't remember.
No, first Diary, then Survival.
Thomas Vinterberg's The Commune. They got a lot of really interesting movies up there right now. They, of course, have their own releases that they do. They just put Decision to Leave in theaters. It's a great site.
Mubi used to add a new film and remove a new film every day so that the clock was ticking. But now, you can watch Mubi on your own schedule. Films stick around.
Yes, exactly. So they've
Just
got
like
all
I
this
hope
stuff.
to stick around as new spokesman extraordinaire.
Look, I throw it to Charlie Wells and company. They can tell me if you get to stick around or not. Mubi's great, and you can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/check. That's mubi.com/check for a whole month of great cinema for free. Mubi.com, the best.
And you can call me Mr. Mubi Phone.
Let me give you some context on Eyes Wide Shut.
Please.
After Full Metal Jacket, one thing that Kubrick wants to make is this Holocaust novel, Wartime Lies, right? It was going to be called Aryan Papers.
Which
That's
we
one of his
talked
sort of
about.
lost projects.
Full Metal
Yes.
Jacket comes out of him searching for the right Holocaust material.
Um,
It was a thing he was stewing on for 20 years, how to make his Holocaust movie. And could
Bumped
never.
him out, right?
Stanley Kubrick stewing on something for 20 years? That doesn't sound
I know.
But like supposedly the research for that movie was a depressing affair. Unsurprising. I don't really know much about that book. Like I don't know what the hook of Wartime Lies is. Do either of you? No.
No, but I mean,
obviously Schindler's List kind of killed it. Has always been
that was
right. Just like there's not this town's not big enough for two.
It's about Polish Jews who get Aryan papers and elude arrest, so they're trying to survive. I guess they're like passing.
But so often he was not picking obvious material to adapt. He'd respond to one specific thing that to other people was inscrutable, and then it's like he goes through 20 different writers trying to see if anyone can crystallize the thing that jumped out to him.
The other thing, obviously, is AI, which he continues to tinker away at. He continues to throw it to screenwriters, and he keeps saying, like, Pinocchio. And they're all like, everyone is like, I don't want to do Pinocchio.
Like, only Zemeckis can get that right.
And he even,
that's when he hooks up with Spielberg.
The short story writer, he was like, I want to take your story and combine it with Pinocchio. And he's like, don't fucking do Pinocchio.
Yeah, right. Come on. I wasn't going for, if I'm Brian Aldiss, I am probably pissed off where I'm like, just because he's a little boy doesn't mean he's Pinocchio.
We talked a lot about the history of different people trying to, or successfully making the auteur obsession with Pinocchio. There were points in the AI process where he was like, maybe I should just fucking do Pinocchio instead. Like he did toy with the idea of just doing straight Pinocchio at different points.
Yes.
I think especially when the tech felt prohibitive.
I'll never understand it.
I don't either.
I mean, I am.
I remember like celebrating the day that PTA's Pinocchio fell apart. It was announced it wasn't going to happen. I was just like, thank God, like go on and make, The Master. Or whatever the fuck you're gonna make.
I would like to just see, for experiment's sake, what would happen with him making a studio movie at that budget level one time. I want to do it one time.
I would love for that to happen as long as it's not a Pinocchio story.
Pinocchio is put him in the box. We don't need him.
Right.
Sand him down.
Yes. Right.
I wish he'd made Doolittle instead.
Yeah, should have done that.
But obviously the things with AI are knows that he's going to film for 2 years, so he can't cast a real child actor because the kid will grow and age too much.
Yes.
So he wants to build a robot child.
He's going to Spielberg being like, can you build a robot child? And Spielberg's like, probably not.
He sees E.T. and he's like, you've cracked it. And he's like, E.T. has to look like a potato.
Right. And then he sees Jurassic Park and he's once again like, well, wait a second, CGI. And it's like,
so
they
died
talk
like several months before Bicentennial Man came out and his dream was finally realized.
The Bicentennial Man actually killed him. That's in the notes here.
Okay.
The death.
Bicentennial Man activate
I do
murder mode. And his eyes go red.
This movie, knowing it's his final statement, I kept on thinking about things that Stanley didn't live to see.
Oh, sure. Right.
In like a good way.
9/11. He missed out on that
one. Thank God. I mean, there's the thing that people say with like certain actors who are not well cast in period pieces where it's like, that's a face that's seen an iPhone. You can't put him in. This is the shorthand that people use today.
Yes.
I'm like so grateful that Kubrick never saw an iPhone.
Never saw an iPhone.
Never saw an iPhone.
And he never saw the film Jobs, starring Ashton Kutcher, which would have helped him understand the iPhone.
He never knew you could have 1,000 songs in your pocket.
He did see Steve Jobs.
He did.
Well, because he gave notes on that. And that's
he asked Vitaly can you give me a screen?
Not
for a movie that's coming out in 16 years? Yeah, sure. Why not?
Just do it.
Yeah. It is unclear when Kubrick first read Traum Novelle, aka Dream Story, the Arthur Schnitzer novel. Kirk Douglas claims he gave it to him during one of their like shared therapy sessions when they were so mad at each other making Paths of Glory or Spartacus.
Yeah.
There's other people. Some people thought maybe Ruth Sabaka, who is Kubrick's second wife, who is Austrian. The novel is Austrian. Maybe she gave it to him. Has anyone read Dream Story?
I have not. Have you?
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
I picked it in book club once. It's a slender tome. It's like 110 pages. And it is very similar to Eyes Wide Shut.
Sure.
To the point that when people are like, Stanley was trying to tell us about Jeffrey Epstein, I'm like, read Dream Story. It's the same. Like, not
Arthur Schnitzler was trying to tell us about
Yeah, exactly. Schnitzler was on the case 100 years ago.
It's modernized.
Of course it's modernized, and of course he is talking about like
the
weirdness of the upper crust of society, but so is Dream Story. But like the plot of the movie is very, very much
but it's also how much it's modernized technologically and culturally in some ways, but it's also very pointedly set
no one
at the
in Dream
end.
Story wears Uggs.
Right. I mean, right. I mean, still shocked to my system to this day that
one character it's fucking crazy.
And I wears Uggs.
And he wears them inside.
He's wearing Uggs and he's drinking a beer out of a high glass ball. It is so highball glass. Sorry. It's
how
so
obsessive Kubrick was about every detail. You know that he was like torturing himself about the Uggs, and he made a conscious choice.
Yeah.
He was like, the Uggs
just look comfortable.
But
what if we found out that Stanley Kubrick developed Uggs? They were like, Uggs came out of his obsessive pursuit.
It's like how we have nylon because of the space program or whatever. It's like he accidentally invented Uggs. I don't know what to tell you.
He was trying to find the right shoe to find this character and accidentally.
But it is a turn of the century novel, a fin de siècle novel and a fin de siècle film. They both
have you read Dream Story?
I haven't, but they both are set at the sort of the precipice of a new age, at the lip of a chasm that's sort of stretching out below the characters.
It feels like fundamentally kind of right that Kubrick didn't live to see the 21st century, and that this is his final object, which is like really at that
but he never got to own a sidekick. Could have texted
he
his
never
friends.
did. An N-Gage. He would have loved the N-Gage.
He would have fucking loved.
He would have been a big believer.
He would have been.
I always have said that. Actually.
So into the Minions. He would have fucking flipped for the Minions.
He would have been doing Minions.
The Minions are brilliant. He's like on the phone with Pierre
The
Coffin.
thing is, he absolutely would have.
Right. Always wanted to make a movie about Minions.
He would have been typing Yogi Berra quotes in MS Paint over random Minions images and acting like they had any correlation. Posting it to his Facebook group.
You know how there's just so many legends of Kubrick, like calling out Brett Brooks and being like modern romance. It's just funny to think about him doing that for like whatever Transformers.
This is what I'm saying though. Like I'm like, if everything in culture becomes dumb in a way that is inescapable,
right? It's because he left us.
Right,
culture got dumb because he wasn't watching over it.
I mean, you hear about him just having like 8-hour phone calls and faxes and letters and all this shit, and you're like, I I'm glad that Kubrick never texted anyone.
He didn't live to have David Zaslav tell him that the film he's been working on for 23 years is going direct to HBO Max.
Right. Or
which would have been
pulled directly from HBO Max.
Right. I think he would have minded that a lot less.
Yeah.
In 1971, he mentions Tromnevel as a project he might work on, along with Napoleon. Yeah. So that's how long it took him, right, to actually make it.
To your point about the book being very similar to the movie, it is fascinating for how long this movie was in the works in his mind. It was this thing he would go back to. He went through so many different writers. It felt like at different times he was trying to use it more as just a starting point for something different.
Sure.
And then ultimately got back to a much closer adaptation.
It's like you said, I mean, it's worth noting that the book is not, at least according to its title treatment, it's not adapted from Schnitzler. It's inspired by.
Right.
And as you were saying, I mean, he pulls so many different pieces from not just like Schnitzler's entire body of work, but like so many other things that he had recorded and jotted down and kept and like took little bits and pieces from over the years until it becomes this collage of ideas that he'd filtered through the filter of the story.
But it's also, I think that had always made me think that it was just loosely inspired by as a starting point.
Sims is leaning over into my face space and glowering his eyes.
I haven't read the book, but I read the Wikipedia page for the book where they were breaking down the differences between the book and the movie, and I was surprised by how much they were not superficial, but like surface level elements.
Little things. And then there's things he adds, certainly.
Sure, but the motions of the story are pretty one-to-one, right?
Like fucking, the piano player, the whole thing with the patient's daughter trying to kiss him, professing her love for him. All the
story beats are like
the prostitute, all that stuff. Tom Cruise, this is from Tom Cruise, famed actor.
Thomas Cruise.
He's in the film. Says that Kubrick had told him that Christian Kubrick had not wanted him to do it because they had just done Lolita.
Oh, sure.
And she said, please don't, not now. We're so young. Let's not go through this right now. Now, that's Cruise relating a quote from Christian, but it is funny for her just thinking, an orgy movie? No, come on, man. Like, can we just do something else?
And he had said, around the same time, this was going to be the hardest film for him to make. And it's funny that I'm sure he believed that until, the day he died when he finally finished making it. That even compared to Full Metal Jacket or 2001 or a Nabokov adaptation, like this was for him the hardest movie he had to make.
But you've already mentioned it. But that famous story of he like reached out to Albert Brooks after seeing Modern Romance and said jealousy. And he was like, "How did you do this? This is this thing I've been trying to bottle." This dynamic, this exploration of sexual tension, relationships between men and women. I can't figure out how to do this. And all the stories you hear about the development process for this movie over decades were him waffling back and forth between like, is this a comedy or a tragedy, or is it somewhere in between?
Right.
And he often would defer to, like, at different times, he wanted to make a Woody Allen version of this movie, Bill Murray, Steve Martin.
Adam Sandler.
Steve Martin's a big one. But Woody Allen, right, that was the earliest option, right?
Who said that he was never contacted by him. He only heard about it later.
Correct.
Kubrick had wanted.
He never told Allen himself.
Steve Martin, I believe he like met with, had talks with.
They had conversations on, basically they were, how funny should this be?
And this was before, Kubrick had decided that he wanted to make the movie as non-Jewish as possible.
Right.
Obviously.
Right. But Steve Martin, it was off of The Jerk. Like he had only made The Jerk.
Wait, let me go through this. No, it's fine.
I'm sorry.
He asked Anthony Burgess to read the novella at one point. He asked Diane Johnson, who co-wrote The Shining with him, to read it. He basically would show it to like every writer he met, being like, "Do you have a take?
Terry Southern."
Right.
He goes to her, who's like, "I just
Neil
got out
Simon.
of Full Metal Jacket. It's taken me 12 years to recover from this. I want to do another thing." Right. Neil Simon. Steve Martin. He loved The Jerk.
So he talked to Steve Martin about it. Terry Southern. He told Terry Southern he wanted to do a sex comedy with a wild and somber streak running through it. And then he goes to Full Metal Jacket. He reaches out to John le Carré, one of the great novelists alive. At that point, he's not alive anymore. RIP. And le Carré said, like, I don't know how to figure this, to update. I don't know how to modernize this, right? Like, I don't know how to, because he was very much like, it should be contemporary, not like set in 19th century Vienna or whatever.
But the phrase "eyes wide shut" it may have been inspired from Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Hell yeah.
Which is a fun little bit of factoid.
Can I just step back to Steve Martin for 1 second here? The thing I find fascinating is by the time he makes this movie in the mid 90s,
Steve Martin would be great for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For him to call that in 79 when his persona is just wild and crazy guy doofus.
It's big like casting Bill Murray in Lost in Translation energy.
No, it would have been. It would have been cool. I mean, God knows what the movie looks like. I think Tom Cruise.
It's entirely different. It's entirely different.
It's very different. But yeah, we're talking like post Father of the Bride.
He makes perfect sense. You see the version of this movie.
No,
and a moment earlier, you're like, why would you cast him? What are you talking about?
I just love this idea that John le Carré's note was like, why don't we set it in like a medieval walled city? And Kubrick was like, but then finally he finds Frederick Raphael. He meets him at a dinner party hosted by Stanley Donen. That sounds fun.
Cool.
Hell yeah.
He wrote Darling. He's like a veteran screenwriter. He has an Oscar, I think. He gave a bunch of drafts of the screenplay to him, and he puts it, this is Raphael's quote, he does not want and never wanted a collaborator. He wants a skilled mechanic who can crank out the dross he will turn into gold.
Yeah.
So I guess he just, like you say, he just wants someone who's like, well, here are the bricks of it. Like, here's how this can work.
Sounds like a contractor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He really didn't want it to be Jewish, as you say.
We'll get into that.
We'll dig into it. Yeah.
What? I'm sorry, what?
Well, the dream story is about a Jewish person. The novella is about a Jewish person.
Got it.
And Kubrick wanted it to be upper crust wasps.
Vaguely Jewish. It's like the character is Jewish, but it's not.
He's not like,
to my
my
understanding.
bagels and schmear.
but like this scene,
this orgy's got no whitefish salad. I'm leaving.
I say this as someone who just read the Wikipedia page.
Sure.
But the scene in the movie where the bunch of like frat boys yell at him and throw a bunch of gay homophobic slurs at him.
Yeah.
In the book, that is a recurring thing with people yelling anti-Semitic shit at him on the street.
Because it's it's a fraught time for the Jews.
Right. So it is it's part of the texture of the thing that there's this sense of otherness from him being Jewish.
Got it. Okay.
But here
this movie replaces it with a sense of emasculation.
And he's looking for like the most sort of like waspy aspirational.
That's the thing. I feel it's like Tom Cruise is playing a wasp who's handsome and who is a high-powered doctor, but he's still like, he's not in that like further upper crust, and he's sort of glimpsing. He's like brushing against.
They are sort of the platonic ideal of like the James Gray family in Armageddon Time, which is a movie that'll be out by the time this podcast drops. But like very aspirational in their social
those are
status.
Like lower middle class,
of course. But he is like he has achieved his success. But
he gets to go to that party, but he doesn't know anyone there.
He's what every Jewish mother wants their son to be.
Right, but he's not Jewish. But he goes from like his
Tom
status
is. Would that be good or bad for the Jews?
And it's funny because
not good, right?
Kubrick was saying that he wanted like a Harrison Ford type goy in the role. Harrison Ford, not a goy, but he wanted that type. But like the character Bill Harford goes from high status at the babysitter to low status at the party to super high status, for the like portion of his night, and then the lowest it's an interesting journey he goes on. But he is not he inside and outside. He exists in this liminal space like the whole film does. And I think while there's an element of like passing that being a white Jew can bring to the table, I think he wanted it to be less sort of barriers to entry for people. He wanted it to be more holistic idea of this character, being able to go into all these spaces without being othered.
Harrison Ford's a quarter Jewish, right? Not too shabby. Okay, I was just trying to remember that.
Is he a quarter or a half? Yeah,
according to Adam Sandler, it's a quarter.
He has the thing where he has that quote where he's like, as a man, I've always felt Irish, and as an actor, I've always felt Jewish. Where you're like, all right, Harrison.
Wow. What does that mean?
I don't know. Ding. Just flipping a coin.
Okay.
Comedy point. Eyes Wide Shut. Warner Brothers co-chairman Terry Semel says, could you cast me a movie star, please?
Right. There's the weird quote.
He says you haven't done it since Nicholson in The Shining. It's like, well,
he made one fucking movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And also that movie, does have Matthew Modine in it. It wasn't like a movie star, but it was a name.
No, but you also, look.
But
Matthew Modine is the biggest movie star I can think of just in terms of height.
Very tall.
Very tall.
Very tall guy. Skinny. Tall, skinny guy.
Right, but even at this point, 1996, Hollywood is moving more and more in this direction where it's like, if you're going to do something weird, get one of the 10 bankable names.
Yes. 100%. Alec Baldwin, Kim Basinger, and Bruce Willis Demi Moore, both supposedly considered. We're talking about
makes sense.
Hot couples of the 90s.
Right. He seemed very into the idea of casting a real couple.
Would have been like Chris Pratt and Anna Faris today, I suppose. Well, not today.
Not today.
That would be
10 years ago.
If they were in it.
Why would the first couple come to mind?
Who would it be today?
Olivia Wilde and
Tom Holland and Zendaya.
Wow. Well, we sort of already got this with that Netflix movie, Malcolm and Marie.
But they're not together.
I know.
John David Washington's really good in Death of a Salesman. I mean, sorry, in The Pianist.
In what?
Not in Malcolm and Marie. Isn't he in the? Someone was just telling me he's in a play on Broadway right now.
No, I was like, he's in Amsterdam. That's definitely not what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's in the piano lesson on Broadway, and someone was telling me that he's the standout, and I was like, that I got to see. Yeah. I'm interested in seeing him be the standout.
Has anything in hindsight made more sense than Tom Cruise dropping everything, including his $20 million payday or salary at the time, to be in this movie? Like
it's incredible.
It's so clear to me now, having seen the last 20 years of his life, that he would drop anything to be like, I need to do this. Like
he would never do it now, which is so sad.
Right.
Like,
well, I'll say this. It's hard to even imagine the person that would hold that sway over him.
Right.
Right? I think it needs to be someone who he grew up revering, who felt unattainable to him, especially for a guy who was already checking off so many major directors, but they were directors who were closer to being contemporaries.
Yeah.
There is the Cruise thing. For so long, it was like, I'm fighting to be one of the great movie stars of all time. Right? Fighting to be serious, but also it felt like the thing he was in competition with was, I want to be talked about someday in the same tones as Paul Newman, as whoever. You know, these great movie stars worked with great directors, developed great projects, whatever. It is fascinating that, like, right after this movie, I mean, Magnolia obviously comes out the same year as this, is the thing he jumps to. But like his first movie
incredible year
after this properly is Mission Impossible 2.
Right.
And then it's like Vanilla Sky's there, Last Samurai, Collateral, like Minority Report, War of the Worlds. He goes much more into blockbuster.
Yeah, but he's still working with major filmmakers until he jumps the couch.
I'd argue phase 2 is he's doing big,
but it's
genre
big movies,
epics, things that have more blockbuster appeal, but he's doing them with A-list auteur directors.
Vanilla Sky is very much like, can we do all that dream shit again? That was fun, but just with none of the effort.
It's just fascinating that Vanilla Sky is like the one outlier in that run, because it does feel like post Eyes Wide Shut. He's like, I need to make movies that have a commercial hook. And then I can't do total art.
The couch jumping thing was not long after that. It was 2005, if memory serves, around there for Mission Impossible 3. And so that period that he had to really fuck around and the flexibility was not long-lived.
It's that phase of 2000 to 2006.
But I don't know if he was, like, I can't imagine him ever being happier than he was during like a day on set acting opposite Sydney Pollack in a Stanley Kubrick movie.
No, but it's also, it is fundamentally the most fascinating thing about this movie, where it's like, here's this actor who is obsessed with being able to accomplish anything, right? Is just the most like, tell me what to do, sir. I can fucking put my mind to it. I can get it done.
Like prostrated himself in front of Kubrick. He was like, I am your tool, use me.
Right. And it's like he's finally found the challenge he cannot beat, which is what Kubrick is trying to harness for this movie. This guy who is so desperately trying to be in control of the fucking situation. And Kubrick's process is so intangible that he's like, if you told me what to do, I could execute it. And if I don't know what we're searching for, and I don't even know what the movie is.
And he's like, that's what I want.
Right.
I want you to do that. I mean, he has the ultimate Hollywood extrovert playing this implosive character who is just like blowing up on the inside. And I mean, it's exactly the phenomenon that he's hoping to sort of to bottle up. And, the irony to what you're saying is that he ends up giving, one of his greatest performances as a result of that. He does end up sort of mastering the challenge, just not on his terms.
Yeah. It is that thing, too, where, you hear all these stories that Cruise would be like, what do you want this character to be? And he was like, just you. I think you're right for the part. And Cruise was like, I'm nothing like this guy. I'm nothing like this guy.
Sure.
Don't say that. And I need to create a character. And he's like, no, I just think your face is right for this. And you have the right voice. You should just like act like you in these scenes. It's the exact thing you can say to Tom Cruise that will drive him insane.
Yeah.
That having been said, he, by all accounts, loved working on this movie.
He's
very easy, right? It was
incredibly easy and fast.
Easy.
Well, I'll read all this stuff. But he starts calling Sydney Pollack, a friend of his, because he had just made The Firm, a fucking 6-star masterpiece, better than Eyes Wide Shut, but it's better than every film ever.
Pollack said they had
The Firm is one of those movies where you put it on, you're like, yeah, I know this is like not good, but like, is this the best movie I've ever seen?
I have Tom Cruise on speakerphone right now to yell at you for saying that.
It's a great movie.
Pollack and Kubrick had a phone friendship over years, and he said that Pollack he would sort of use as a sounding board to keep tabs on what was going on in Hollywood, because he was so removed from all of that. So anytime he worked with actors, worked with different people, he'd ask them about him. And from the time he was working on The Firm, he was very fascinated by Cruise.
Right. He would ask thousands of questions. What's he like? What does he do? What does he dress like? So Pollack's like, I really feel like I have convinced him to use Cruise because Tom's a wonderful guy. And then he would go to Cruise and say, like, Kubrick's always calling me about you. You should work with him.
Right.
And then Cruise just always talks about it in every interview in this like very hallowed way where he's like, we were honored to work with him. We did whatever we wanted. We do whatever we could to work with him. We knew it'd be difficult, but I would have kicked myself for not doing it. And Kidman has all that thing where she's like, it was a good time. Like it's so interesting because obviously they get divorced not long after, but it's like 2 years later.
And people wanted the narrative to be this movie broke their relationship.
He like ripped their marriage open in front of them or whatever.
Right. I mean, that's what I thought.
Right. But like Kidman has very much been like, we were all on set. We all lived together with the kids. Like it was obviously took a long time, but it was a nice, I'm going to find
it's
the
like
quote.
It's like a kind of normalcy for them, actors at that level and the schedules and the traveling demanded upon them to be in the same place, to have their kid go to
the other thing obviously is
regularly.
This is much more demanding of Cruise than Kidman. Not that it's not demanding of her, but he is all over the
in
movie
every frame.
She is.
And by all accounts, by the way, like I'm going clear, the book covers this a lot, but like right after this movie is when Scientology is like, Cruise has kind of drifted away. We have to get him back in.
Yeah.
That seems to be the main culprit that broke up their marriage.
Right.
Was for the first whatever years of them being together, he had sort of stepped away. And Scientology really like lured him back in.
Well, Scientology would never interfere in the lives of the people who
of course not.
Scientology's just saying this as a friend.
Right.
Like, do you really think she's right for you?
We loved, this is the Kidman quote. We loved working with him. We shot it for 2 years. We had 2 kids. We lived in a trailer on the lot. We made spaghetti because Stanley liked to eat with us. We were working with the greatest filmmaker, learning our lines and enjoying our lives. We would say, when's it going to end? We thought it would be 3 months and it turned into a year and a half. But you go, as long as I surrender to what this is, I'm going to have a great time. Stanley wasn't torturous. He was maybe arduous, but he they liked him or whatever. They enjoyed him. And this is the best part. We were happily married through all of it. We'd go kart racing after scenes. We'd rent out a place and go renting at 3 a.m. I don't know what else to say. Maybe I don't have the ability to go back, look back and dissect it, or I'm not willing to. So she's sort of like, look, maybe my marriage was crumbling, but I don't think of it that way.
Right.
And I believe her,
It kind of feels like that was maybe the healthiest time in their relationship. It is that thing. I mean, we talked about it in the Full Metal Jacket episode. Gabrus made this point where it's like, if I got hired to be on a Stanley Kubrick movie for a year, I'd be thrilled that I had a year's employment. And I think it is that difference of like, are you, some actors are control freaks who really want to have a complete understanding of the situation and the structure of what they're doing and get it done. But it's what she says of like, if you surrender yourself to the thing, it's like you now just have this ecosystem that you're existing in for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of peaceful. If you're not Tom Cruise going like, what do you fucking need from me? If you're like, my job is to show up every day and we try stuff and it works or it doesn't. If you're not frustrated by that process, it does sound pleasant.
I mean, I would bet that their marriage, not that I'm super invested in this, but I would bet that their marriage was sort of in a place similar to the place that the Harford's marriage is in at the end of the movie, where they've sort of gone through this trial together and survived.
Yeah.
And you've been like forever. And like, I don't know about forever, but let's go fuck.
But the thing that is most frustrating about filmmaking is fighting against time. I think
and that's the one thing they
else,
had. Right. Yeah.
Right. It's that feeling of, do we need to move on before we've gotten the thing? Coming up against the constraints. And everyone just says, like, the main thing he fought for was time. And that he really, he tried to alleviate pressure from his actors as much as possible. As much as people want to believe in this sort of like Taskmaster Kubrick thing, that it was sort of like, this is all exploratory. I'll know it when I see it. There's no pressure on this. If you're not feeling it today, if you're not in the pocket today, it's fine. We'll just shoot it again tomorrow. I don't feel the need to get this scene done today.
But the irony is that they were ultimately under sort of the ultimate clock. They didn't know it at the time, but they had a drop dead date quite literally.
Yes.
And, there's this sort of this thing that I was wrestling with recently is like, was the notion of making Eyes Wide Shut keeping him alive? Or, was finishing it, what he needed to sort of, did that kill him?
There's so much stuff from like his
one way or the other.
family of like, at the end of filming, he seemed like he was dying. Like it was
they talked,
the first
he was
time
running
he
himself
started
down.
to age. Yeah.
Vanessa Shaw has a very cute quote about how there was one very long-winded line that she couldn't get.
Mhm.
And he was like, I'll give you a cue card. And she was like, I don't want to do that. And he gave her a little, she says, he gave me a sneaky smile. And then I forgot the line again. And in the middle of the take, he just He just held up the cue card and she used it. And he was like, if you need it, don't be embarrassed. So like, it's like one of those things where it's like, it's so far from the, scary, exacting Stanley Kubrick
Don't come to set
myth.
tomorrow, but don't be embarrassed about it.
Just the idea of this little like bearded gremlin in a raincoat being like, here's your cue card. It's
Todd Field tells a story about when he was happy with a take, he'd walk out from behind the camera and like give them a handshake and just sort of say like,
Hollywood.
Thank you so much. Like
he would take you to the side, shake your hand and say congratulations, like you'd finished a long journey together.
All the anecdotes from this sound like he was really appreciative of actors and tried to use the clout he had to create a very safe space where
let's take as long as it needs.
They were insulated from any of those, because it is that feeling of just like, oh, it's the big scene and I have a fucking head cold and we have to get it done today. And who knows if they'll let us reshoot, and if we reshoot 6 months from now, is it going to be the same? We missed it. And it's like, it sounds kind of incredible to be able to, a production like this feels like it was a healthy stop on the synecdoche scale of it starts to become its own universe, its own world.
I mean, and like the only thing I can think of that ended up shooting for a longer continuous period of time was like the Dow project, which was not on the healthy end of that scale. So that is what ultimately eclipsed it. But he wasn't always, as I'm sure you guys discussed in the Shining episode, which hasn't come out yet when we're doing this, wasn't always creating such a safe space.
No.
For his actors, maybe didn't always have the time.
We talked about it.
But when you read about people talking about like shooting the orgy sequence here, which one would assume might be the most fraught with potential for things to go awry or be uncomfortable, apparently it was like the most pleasant time on set. So.
And Kidman said, he was describing to her, how he wanted to shoot the sort of fantasy sex sequence that's intercut her pieces throughout the movie, and she felt uncomfortable doing full frontal nudity, and he was like, anytime you are naked, I will give you final editing approval. You show the footage. Any footage you don't want out there is killed. You tell me what's in it or not. And she said like that was not a thing that anyone was offering at that point in time.
That's in the 90s. It's like, shut up, come on, it's in your contract, do what I tell you.
Paul Verhoeven like tricking Sharon Stone to take her underwear off because it's reflecting the light. The light is bad.
The Todd Field thing that I really like is that he was like, I was so freaked out because it was Tom Cruise and Kubrick, and at a certain point he got better, and Kubrick was like, he got over it, and he was like,
and then he made Tar.
The better story there is that he did a take, he nailed a take, he goes over, he shakes his hand, he was like, thank you so much, and he's like, yeah, sorry, it took a little while, and Kubrick was like, first couple of takes fucking stunk, they were bad. Why were they so bad? But he was he freaked out.
So we know that fucking Keitel was in this movie, obviously, and got fired in the Sydney Pollack.
Keitel was not apparently super enthused about anything about how things were going.
Kubrick was a genius. He did some things I objected to. I didn't like it. I thought they were disrespectful, and I won't be disrespected by him or anyone else. I mean, like, all right, Harvey.
There are a million urban legends around what led to the firing.
Well, because like there's this weird like thing like that he had like he came on Kidman's leg, but then everyone's like, well, no, he didn't. That's not a thing.
For so long, that was the story, was he insisted on masturbating for real, and the ejaculate hit her leg. And
it's like, in what scene? Like, what are you talking about?
They filmed this movie for a year and a half. Certainly there are entire scenes that are not
everyone's
in the
ejaculate
film.
Was getting on everyone's legs.
Right. But that was always the story. Like, Keitel was such a method actor that he said he had to do this. That feels like it's bullshit. There's the thing that JJ put in the dossier that like, they need to build a new set. They want to keep Keitel on hold, and they weren't going to pay him for the hold.
Right.
I think it's what's difficult about working on a Kubrick film is he's essentially saying, I want you blacked out for these dates into eternity. And
Keitel wouldn't surrender. He wouldn't surrender his body, wouldn't surrender his time.
Right. And like, Kidman and Cruise are in a position where they're willing to surrender because they're like two of the biggest movie stars in the world. They have so much fucking money. They can take the break. They can remove themselves from the circuit for a couple of years. If you're Keitel and you're like, I could be doing fucking 12 movies this week. Why do you want me to stay in a goddamn hotel room?
And we've talked about this is Holy Smoke era Keitel. He's working. And also he's like, it's an orgy and you don't want the Colt 45.
I snum those pistols.
Jennifer Jason Leigh's the other one, right? That was literally when they went to reshoot it. She was like, "I'm sorry, I have a bone gun. I'm in existence right now." And so so she was the woman who the daughter of the dead.
It's funny. Right? Just given her a bone gun and kept her.
It's funny. She was like, "You told me I was going to be wrapped out in 3 months." It's like 3 months. She's in one scene, and he was like, "I'm sorry, it's gone from 3 months to 6 months. I need you to re-up."
So I'd love to see her though in this movie. She'd probably be amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of. She would. It does.
I really like this scene. I really like Marie Richardson. Is that her name? Yeah.
I think the scene would have played differently. I don't know if she could have done the watered eyes, total vulnerability. I'm throwing myself at you. Sort of act in quite the same way.
But also, I think it's to this movie's advantage that outside of outside of Cruise and Kidman, most of the actors are not really bringing previous baggage to the table.
For sure.
Even the actors who've had bigger careers after this.
Right.
It doesn't feel...
I don't know how do you say his name. Do you know how to say it?
Mission Impossible too.
Yeah.
Well, but also he gets Batman a coat. He gets a coat from Batman.
Yes.
Here he gives Cruise a coat.
Yes.
Later he gets a coat from Batman.
Right. A truly iconic performance. It's just about anyone
so fucking good in this movie.
In this movie is.
Alan Cumming, you love to see him.
I had been actively following the Orgy Master's acting career for several years before Eyes Wide Shut came out. I loved him in Little Big League.
Yes, great in that. David?
Yep.
Do night sweats have you feeling sad? Because I know you get the night sweats. I'm not asking if you get the night sweats. I'm asking if it makes you sad.
Yeah, because, makes it uncomfortable to sleep. Mm-hmm. And I do run hot.
Same.
In the bed.
Same. I wake up every morning and I feel the wetness on my face and I go, am I clammy or crying? Am I getting the night sweats? Am I sad about the night sweats or both?
There's also the thing of, now that it's winter time, that my apartment's like radiators are banging away, heating it up. Hate all that.
Hate it.
I need something cool to help me rest. Griffin, have you ever heard of the Marlow pillow?
I have. A pillow as cool as Philip Marlowe, legendary noir character.
I mean, absolutely.
Right?
It's an adjustable cooling new pillow from the creators of Brooklinen, and it's an all-in-one solution for the common nighttime concern of overheating. Also neck pain.
Hey, two things I hate. This is a pillow that likes to walk around the lonely streets of Los Angeles, chain smoking, in a rumpled suit, a loosened tie.
It doesn't smell cigarettes, though.
No, it smells cool, the pillow.
Absolutely.
It smells as cool as it keeps you, but this pillow likes to feed cats, talk to them.
Okay, listen.
Yeah.
Brooklinen has 8 years of experience in the sleep space. Mm-hmm. They make sheets, they make comforters, they make all kinds of great comfortable stuff.
We love them. Rich and Vicky Fulop.
They've noticed that people are struggling with pillows, with overheating, confusion about firmness levels.
This was maybe the only problem with Brooklinen.
That they didn't make a pillow.
You outfit your whole bed with Brooklyn, and then you go, now my pillow's not up to snuff. My pillow's outclassed by the rest of the Brooklyn product.
Here's some stuff they've got.
Okay.
Adjustability. It's the Goldilocks of pillows. It's got 2 unique zippers on each side that makes customization a breeze. So you can unzip both of them for a soft plush feel, keep them zipped for dense and firm, or do something in the middle.
Just to clarify, when they say the Goldilocks of pillows, they don't mean that it's stuff full of porridge, do they?
No, I don't think it's made of porridge. I'm seeing here that it uses NASA technology for a proprietary fill of memory foam and polyester fiber.
Perfect. I tried sleeping on porridge and it was bad.
You used a porridge pillow? Yeah, right. Yeah. Sure. And there's a 365-day return policy and a 2-year warranty so you can rest easy and dream big on the comfiest, most supportive pillow on the market. Mm-hmm. Don't sleep on these pillows. Invest in your bed rest today by heading to marlowpillow.com. Bundle and save up to 40% on your purchase with an additional 10% off for first-time customers.
That's kind of a clever ad read joke because they're saying don't sleep on these pillows. What they mean is don't sleep on buying one, but then when you buy one, you should, in fact, sleep on this pillow. Very clever ad read joke. Thank you to whoever wrote that copy.
We're done.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.
So yeah, let's talk about the movie. So Eyes Wide Shut is about one crazy night in the life of Dr. Bill Harford.
Ben, by the way, we're not exaggerating. This movie started filming in 1996 and wrap production in 1998.
Yeah, it was
it had the record for the longest continuous shoot.
And it still does, right? Or has it been beaten? Because it was certainly the record holder as long as I ever knew.
Yeah.
I think Dow would technically beat it, but that is sort of not a single narrative. It feels like an average, right?
It doesn't count.
And I guess at this point, it's just what you're saying. It's like the man just won't work under the gun. He's just going to take as long as he needs on everything.
Right.
And so that's how it just gets so expansive, right? Because you watch Eyes Wide Shut and you're not like, I can see why this took 2 years. Like when you watch Apocalypse Now and then you hear like that was like a really brutal shoot, you're like, sure. Yeah, sure. This insane.
This movie ended up costing $60 million.
It sounds like maybe $65 million.
Most of that was Christmas lights.
Yeah, sure.
The rest was,
most of that was paying off the Illuminati.
I understand it's 1999, so it's like you
don't have the rights to being the Illuminati. You can't just put us in movies. Fine, fuck. What do you need?
So write a check to the Illuminati.
Right.
I just remember at some
Bank of America,
at some early point in the podcast, Ben, when we were throwing out budget numbers, you were like, "Can you guys explain to me why movies are so fucking expensive?" And we broke it down for you. That's like the thing that doesn't get accounted for very often is that you're essentially like starting a company.
Right.
The amount of employees you need in all positions.
You've said a company, and another way that's been helpful is like describing it even as like you essentially have like the budget of a country.
Right. And you need...
You're like founding a country.
One of many similarities between Eyes Wide Shut and Blank Check.
You need doctors. Like you need... It is sort of like building a country. So it's one of those things where you're like... To essentially operate an independent sovereign nation for almost 2 years, $65 million is surprisingly low to me.
Yeah.
It was... expensive though.
Yes, expensive.
Yeah, and
but
they had to build New York City
across days.
No, I know what you're saying.
Pretty cheap movie per day.
I mean, he was very thrifty, not maybe as extremely as like a Clint Eastwood type, but he would have Leona Vitali, who played one of my favorite characters. I've mentioned and we'll mention again, the Orgy Master.
Yes.
He had him play like 8 other characters at the Orgy, just so they could save money on extras.
Yeah,
and like that's the kind of penny pinching.
And it also in the Orgy, I feel like he used his guys because he was like, this is the most complicated thing, and I want my guys.
Well, also he knew they fucked good.
Yeah, he did. Stanley liked to orgy.
The great anecdote is that, like, Kubrick wasn't a guy who really wanted visitors on set, but Cruise snuck Paul Thomas Anderson on because they were meeting about Magnolia at that point, knowing that Magnolia was going to be what he did next.
Right.
And introduced Kubrick to PTA. And was like, this is incredible. You have like 5 crew members here. Like, is your crew always this small?
How do you keep it this small?
How do you keep it this small? And Kubrick's response was like, how many people do you have on set? And PTA is like, I felt like such a Hollywood asshole immediately.
Right.
It's
amazing to think about like 27-year-old PTA being like, how do you only have 5 guys? And Kubrick is just like, what do you mean?
But like when he gets to Phantom Thread, it feels like he sort of, as his career went on, tried to find a way to minimize, simplify in that way, even down to him being like, there isn't a DP, it's just me and a couple camera guys and whoever picks it up. Like, The Master's one of those things where it's like they're all just on that boat for however many months, and Amy Adams was called to set and put in wardrobe even when she wasn't in the scene. Like, it feels like PTA sort of learned some lessons from being on this set that took years to seep in.
The DP on this movie, he'd never been the cinematographer on a movie before. I mean, he'd done lighting work for Kubrick before, but I can imagine this
one of
being
Kubrick's gaffers called him over to his place to talk about visual concepts and went like, so I don't know, do you want to shoot it?
Yeah, I mean, and he went on to make, Veer X. He's actually had an interesting career as a DP.
He shot Marmaduke?
No, he does the John Michael McDonagh movie. So he does like The Guard and Calvary.
Calvary looks beautiful. We were talking about that the other day.
And he did Bronson. He did a couple Refn movies.
Yeah.
Veer X being one of them. Only God Forgives he did. So that's funny.
Movies.
Yeah. Recently he did that movie Dark Harvest that's coming out this year. Anyway. David Slade's new movie. But anyway, so this movie starts with David Slade. He's trying to get production ready on 30 Days of Night. No.
It's a weird opening. Right.
Right. And then we cut to Bill Harper.
Sun can't come up at all.
It's Bill and Alice going to a party. But first we see Alice dressing. Is that the first shot of the movie?
The first shot's her tush.
Nicole Kidman's buttocks?
That is one of those... It's one of those flourishes that is controversially maybe added after the fact of Kubrick's death.
The world's longest back, can I say that?
Oh my God.
She looks about as tall as anyone has ever looked on screen in this movie. It is disorienting when Cruise stands next to her. Because especially when she's like undressed and you're not seeing any
she is a tall woman.
She's
like
I know she's
5'11".
a tall woman, but you look at like the way she's built and she looks like an NBA player.
Whether it was Kubrick's idea or not to open the shot with that movie, beyond just the instant sex appeal of it, I think it works so well because the first thing that we hear Bill say to his wife when the movie like starts proper is, she's saying like, how do I look? And he's not looking at her, and he says like, you look beautiful. And it's like already that sort of
he's negging her hair.
Like we've been sort of struck by the physical beauty, and he's not even. When then we meet this man who's taking it for granted.
I also think, look, it is important to mention just right off the bat, as we start digging into the plot of this movie, per Kubrick's wishes, had like very limited, elusive marketing. The teaser was famously just sort of the moment of the two of them in the mirror together, naked, did a bad thing. And then it was just like Cruise, Kidman, Kubrick, eyes wide shut.
It's pretty good shit.
So effective.
Everything about this movie was like fucking mysterious. I remember, like, just as a kid who would watch fucking Entertainment Tonight, they were breathlessly reporting on rumors about this film.
They dropped the trailer at Comic-Con, right?
Yeah, but it truly was like talked about as if it was a Marvel trailer to be scrutinized. And there was all this rumor mongering of like, they're going to have full penetrative sex on screen.
Yeah, right.
The movie's about
I hear it's the craziest
It's going to be the craziest
right.
shit in the world. So even just opening with her fully naked feels like, here we fucking go.
But it's just...
And then people, I think, are flummoxed the more this movie goes into this weird, austere, sad
this
world.
Is like, vintage Hollywood, and something we still do today. We see it to a degree with Blonde.
Yes.
Where you
won't believe how fucked up this thing.
And you get people excited for the movie, but it fits it in a very particular prism, and then the actual movie ends up contraventing, what they were trying to make. I don't have any great love for Blonde, quite the opposite. But
there was so much fascination with the two of them as a couple, and how weird and secretive and protective they were. That this idea of like, oh, we're going to see something really intimate.
But how, it's not like Amsterdam, where you can't. It's like, how did anyone fuck up the marketing for this movie so bad? Because it's such a clear story to tell.
Yeah.
How would you sell Eyes Wide Shut if not on the mystique?
They
it's
sold
like,
it perfect. They did a great job.
A guy who is kind of cucked, maybe.
You can't. It sort of was a don't worry, darling of its time, where people were so fascinated by all the different stories about what was or wasn't happening on set, and especially because the director then died and couldn't put his foot in his mouth in the press. Not that he was ever going to do press for it. That like things like the Keitel ejaculating story, it just like became this box of like, what is in this movie?
I just want to put a button on the side note that no one wanted in the first place, which is the reason that I bring up Amsterdam, is because the reason they couldn't mark that movie is because the whole plot started.
Be quiet. I don't care.
And they didn't want to include that. And so they were just like, we're just not going to tell anyone what the movie's about. It's a mess.
I haven't seen Amsterdam.
Yeah, well, you don't
asshole.
need to. You're going to bleep it out. But I was texting.
No, it'll come out by now. We just
everyone
spoiled
will
it
have
for
seen.
me.
Everyone and their grandma will know Amsterdam by heart by the time
I saw it. And I was texting with David and Marie, and they were like, what is the movie even about? And I explained the plot to them in 3 sentences, and they went, are you kidding? That is what the movie is about?
It's a real life situation where it's like no one could explain what it's about.
Enough. Anyway. We're talking Eyes Wide Shut. I can't believe we went on an Amsterdam tangent. I'm actively angry about it. Bill Harford and Alice go to a party.
Damn.
Let's talk about the Christmas party. This is the first major sequence of the movie, correct?
Truly more Christmas lights than an NYU freshman.
So many lights.
Can we talk about the look of this thing, which I have seen people break down in technical
I can give you what they did, but I am no master of lighting. No. What they did was they shot faster.
Thomas Kincaid.
Right? And then they would force develop it down, which is something you do usually like in a pinch if you're like losing the light, I think.
Correct. It's
usually seen as like, well, that's not going to look as good.
The backlighting was too intense because of all the Christmas lights, and so they had to drop it down. It's
like a desperate fix, that is seen as like a little bit of a cheat or an unseemly thing, and they like lean into it, and then it's all this sort of very soft, diffuse lighting. The Christmas lights, China balls, worm bulbs, but trying to avoid standard Hollywood lighting setups.
You create this already, even though we haven't gotten into the dream element of the story, you have this sort of like dreamy St. Elmo's fire of a glow.
Right.
But one of the
things
like
this for everything.
It
wasn't just
but it feels like the Jewish element of the movie to me is that it feels like a Jew's idea of Christmas. It's all the aura of Christmas and none of the symbology.
Yes.
It's like all just the feeling of it.
Well,
and that's why
they have those lights that look almost like a menorah, those like triangular Christmas ornament, like with lights.
Oh, sure.
They have that, and I spotted it, and I'm like, wait, they're not Jewish. Like, and then I realized, like, oh, that's not a menorah. Things like that. Obviously, the Pollack character is Jewish.
Yes. I mean, he is, potentially like a collection of very vile Jewish stereotypes.
Sure.
But I think Sydney Pollack's able to weaponize it away from
the fact that it was Keitel at first, too.
Yeah, no, I
gives
don't,
me a little solace where I'm like, well, also, okay, so it wasn't intended. You know, a lot of that is just Pollack bringing his own aura to the table.
But the thing I love this movie has so many great lines.
Stan is a Jew as well.
Well, that's what I mean. Oh no, I mean he I think had his complicated relationship with his own Jewishness, as any of us do. Yeah. But the thing I love about that first scene is it sort of epitomizes how well coded the lines of dialogue in this movie are. They say something, they mean another, but they're not always insufferably on the nose about it or ever. Mm-hmm. And I love how something I was just thinking about last night watching this movie I truly have no idea what number of times when Bill and Alice are dancing and she says, "Do you know anyone here?" And he says, "Not a soul." And he's holding his wife. And he's, it's this sort of the precursor to this idea of mystery in a marriage and these the blind spots that you have between two people who spend their lives together. But I love how physically close they are when he's saying that.
Yes, I love this whole thing so much. It's
amazing.
This opening sequence you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I love everything in Eyes Wide Shut. The Pollack stuff is all my favorite. I don't know why. It's just that weird veneer of respectability. And the way that quickly he's in the bathroom with a naked woman who has overdosed.
Well, you're at this party. You're introduced to him with his wife. Thank you for coming. We're entertaining all these people.
Enjoy. I have a marble staircase lined with lights. It's so fancy.
Incredible apartment.
Everyone here is some sort of fucking count or whatever.
I think what works about his performance is that we feel the same welcome to the fold sort of warmth.
He's not even
Tom Cruise does.
He's not even gregarious. Yeah. But there is something kind of real about him that's not real, and whatever. He doesn't feel like he's laying it on too thick.
No, well, it's that thing too with famously the reason he ends up playing the agent in Tootsie, which was his first acting role in 20 plus years at that point. He was no interest in being back on.
He's so good in Tootsie.
Incredible.
He's good in there. He's always. He's so fucking insanely good in Michael Clayton as well. Anytime
Death
he shows
up,
Death Becomes Her.
We talked about this in the Death Becomes Her episode where it crystallized it for me, where I'm like, he's the exact actor I would like to age into being. And that wasn't even his main career.
Right, that was just something he would do as a goof.
But
almost.
I look at the Tootsie to Michael Clayton run of Sydney Pollack, sometimes character actor, working with great directors. And I'm like, that's the exact body of work I would like to have. I would like to age into him. Yeah. I can't wait till my nose gets bigger.
Well, you want a little more hair on the chest, and then you throw some suspenders over the bare chest.
Look.
But
the Tootsie thing, though, it's important.
It's my ideal male body, I think, is Sydney Pollack in this movie. That's what I'm aspiring towards.
What's preventing?
I go to the YMCA and I bring a little photo and I just show it to the people at the desk and I'm like, make me into that.
Make me into this. No, I just want to be him. But the Tootsie thing was famously that Hoffman was like, I need you to play this because I need it to be someone I'm intimidated by. I'm going to feel like I can act any actor off the screen because I'll be scared of you because you're the director.
Right.
It'll work. And similarly, it's very smart to cast Pollack in this because Pollack is a director who's worked with Cruise before. And Cruise is still going to be a little
deferential to him. And just the audacity of bringing the doctor into the bathroom and saying look, she had a bit of an accident with a speedball to a fucking unconscious hooker who's apparently been out for 5 minutes.
This is what I want to unpack for a minute.
And he's just zipping up his pants. And the way he talks about it, you almost are like, poor Sydney Pollack. This is a tough situation for him. He almost gets you on his side.
Right.
Yeah.
The time that elapses between Pollack and his wife welcoming them to the party, right? And suddenly just guy in a suit, come upstairs, we need you immediately. Very calmly, door opened. Here's one passed out. Pollack putting fucking suspenders over his bare chest, casually saying, it's one of these things where we were fucking and the speedball, snowball, whatever the fuck, the heroin and cocaine. What can you do about this? That thing where he's so nonchalant about it that he makes it feel like you're weird if you act like this is weird. Yeah. It is a thing I think this movie captures so well. What I think it is so good at, not above all else, but one of its main strengths that I don't think most films are able to convey, this very peculiar feeling of when you witness something, or someone says something to you that in an instant fundamentally changes your perception of reality. Mm. There are those moments in your life where someone says something to you, the weird unspoken thing under the table that you never even sensed, where suddenly you have to sort of engineer your entire sense of self, your past, everything you knew about this person, yourself, or when you witness just a very bizarre act and you have that sort of disassociative moment. the speed at which Cruise just gets to work doing this, part of you goes, well, here's this dude, he's this doctor for these upper crust people. Maybe he's constantly getting called in as like, the Michael Clayton of physicians to clean up rich people's messes. But part of it is just everyone's acting like this is normal.
But it's not.
Right.
The fact this is happening upstairs at the party where his wife is with all these people entertaining, you're just like, this isn't a house call happening at a Sunday at 3 a.m.
I fucking dropped a lamp. Can you help me? I can't find the pieces.
Like, why is this happening now?
Nonchalance of it. Right.
This is a movie about...
when Cruise is like, give her another hour, he's like, oh, I shouldn't put her in a cab right now because she's just like,
right.
And I'm like, and he's just like, no, I would give her an hour. But he doesn't say it in a chiding way.
You think of the Dennis O'Hare scene in Michael Clayton where he's like, you need to fix this right the fuck now. And Pollack's like, so what do you recommend? What's the protocol?
The difference between Bill Harford and Michael Clayton is that this is a movie about seduction. It's a movie about desire. And it's about, in the scene, what Ziegler recognizes the weakness in Bill Harford, which is like, this is a guy who's so horny for access into this kind of society.
Right.
He is so in awe of the power that I wield.
Yeah.
He is so at my mercy that I can bring him into these secrets that he won't tell.
It's a dominance display.
Yeah.
In a way where he's just like, you get to see this and do me a favor, which I will appreciate.
Yes.
But you can't do anything about
this. This is a guy who...
you can't be like, this is really fucked up situation, buddy. Like, what the fuck is this? Like,
but it's fascinating that Cruise doesn't play a moment of that. He's inscrutable. It's really hard to read if he's going to that mode by default or because he's made a career out of doing this regularly. The one thing you sense is this is a guy who hates the idea of a closed door, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Nothing will turn him on.
Showing his doctor's card everywhere he goes.
He needs to be able to win people over, to achieve enough, to succeed enough that people will open that door for him. And the ultimate sort of message of the Sydney Pollack character is like, you're so much better off not knowing. There are these questions that you think you want to know the answers to. And the reality is, some of them, the answers are far more banal than you think. And some of them are so much more fucked up than you think. And you'll be disappointed or horrified by both versions.
That's a very generous reading of that character. I also think that he probably takes some pleasure in putting Bill Harford in this place.
Absolutely. But he recognizes, like, you're not a guy who can exist in this world.
Yeah. But it's also the whiplash. You're talking about Cruise's performance in that scene and how sort of unflustered he is. I mean, it's the whiplash of him going from being so high status that he doesn't even remember the babysitter's name, even though his wife told it to him like 8 seconds earlier, to going into a party where he is the low man, he's sort of like in reverence to Ziegler. I mean, it's like that constant checking where he is in the scheme of things and orienting himself to it.
Anytime Cruise is low status in a movie, it is solely so that eventually he can have his just desserts by proving everyone fucking wrong, by being the one person who can fucking fix anything. And the fact that this movie just distorts reality around Cruise, who never loosens his grip, right? His palms just get sweatier and sweatier, like clutching onto anything he can. But he just becomes more and more pathetic and just sort of like, by the final scene, you just feel like Pollack, where you're just like, dude, you just fucking back away from this.
Because the only other movie that fits that description for Cruise is Magnolia, which he was filmed right after.
Yes. David, I'm sorry to interrupt the natural flow of conversation.
Yeah, I hate it when you do it, but okay, what's going on?
But we gotta talk about notifications.
Who leaves those sounds on anymore?
We hate the sounds. Can I think of one single solitary notification sound that I actually enjoy hearing these days?
Cha-ching.
Wait a second, that's the one.
It's the sound of another sale on Shopify.
That's the only one. That's the only one. Because when I hear bling and it's a text, I go, oh God. But when I hear cha-ching, I smile ear to ear.
What about doo-doo-doo? That was the sound I would get. That was a new MSN Messenger notification.
Yeah, that sucks.
What about Kung Kung?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Right.
Yeah, new location on Law and Order.
I feel like the AIM one, no. AIM had the door shut. That was so awful when someone left the chat. Do you remember that? Slamming the door in the face?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and the... right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But they also said the...
Yes. That was when you sent, maybe?
Look, it's an all-in-one commerce platform that you can use to start, run, and grow your business. It makes it simple to sell to anyone from anywhere. Your things, vintage teas, or recipes for ghee. Interesting.
David,
clarified butter.
Do you know who loves Shopify?
No, I don't.
Us here at Blank Check. Because we, of course, have a Shopify store. You go to blankcheckpod.com, you get links to our store. We got some exciting new updates coming in the store right now. We got some new items. Embroidered blank check logo crew neck. We got a clapboard tote bag. We also have some new pre-sale items. This is a new thing we're going to try out with some of our items so we don't accidentally produce 8,000 spatulas before demand exists.
We got which are available.
It's still very much available. We should mention that. Flat Stanley Kubrick, classic Joe Bowen design. We've shared a lot. People cut out, spread around the word. We got that as a t-shirt, and we got a patch beanie and a separate iron-on patch if you want to throw that patch on somewhere else. The classic Czech logo. Those pre-sales are going to be opening up soon. If you want to place your orders, have those hit your mailbox in early 2023. And we're also restocking some of the classic items, the Comedy Point coins and the Two Friends hats. So you got items that are on sale now, shipping soon, and some pre-sale items that you can order now and have hit a little bit after the holidays.
And we love Shopify because it's got all our sales channels sorted. Got an in-person POS system. It's got an e-commerce platform. You can link it to any kind of social media platform. They got 24/7 support. They've got all kinds of educational content to help you build things out.
Yes, they've taught me so much.
Yes. And you can try it for free and start selling anywhere. So sign up for a free trial at shopify.com/check, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/check to start selling online today. Shopify.com/check.
And then go to blankcheckpod.com to start buying online today.
Obviously, the other thing happening at the party is that Nicole Kidman, Alice, is dancing with the Hungarian,
right?
Who's basically like, "Come on, let me take you away."
And Cruz has this flirtation with the two models.
Yes,
they each have their brief. Those both happen before he gets called into Pollack's office, right?
Well, it's like he's with the models when he gets called in, and then she just keeps dancing with the Hungarian while he's dealing with this. I mean, she doesn't know what's happening.
And he is clearly delighted at the thrill of being able to pass up this opportunity to have sex with these two young models because he's so happy and secure in his marriage.
Do you think the Hungarian's hot? I don't know. Kind of getting he's going to disappear me after this vibe.
I don't like
him. He is a cartoon of hotness. He's of a certain
He's a cartoon of like a
not of like Abercrombie model
rich guy who
very European.
Right, show
it's
you
like
a
out
good
of a
time.
Stefan Zweig novel. This is sort of a New Yorker cartoon of or Mad Magazine cartoon.
But he doesn't even have like some sense of like Stellan Skarsgård kink to him where you're like, this guy's a little interesting.
Absolutely. Stellan Skarsgård, I will throw down. I will. If the table was between me and Stellan, the table's going against the wall.
Right. He is outmatched by Nicole Kidman in terms of just like who has the upper hand here.
She, by the way, just looks so good in this movie. It's crazy. This whole aesthetic, the little glasses, the up hair.
When the hair was still curly, a thing that she's
is so good. Yeah, why did she abandon the curls?
I don't know. When was the last time she was curly haired in a movie? Does she have some curls in Rabbit Hole? I felt like that was her trying to strip it back again a little.
No, because I've never seen that because I didn't want to because it seemed like a depressing
I would
movie.
not recommend starting now.
It looks like she's got a little bit of I'm not going to want. No, she's kind of just got standard like Nicole Kidman of the 2000s.
She's one of those people where it's like the amount of time she's dyed her hair, done different treatments to them. I don't think she could make her hair look like this again if she wanted. And you look at like BMX Bandits where she has like, fucking a slash mop top.
Her big orange, bushy hair. It's so good.
This is pretty much the last vestige because I feel like when you get to Moulin Rouge and the others, everything's become straightened out, more blonde.
And it's hard to remember now. Moulin
Rouge is red, but cartoon red.
It's hard to remember a time now when people didn't take her seriously as an actress. But this for me was really sort of like the ultimate dividing line of like anyone who says that is wrong. Because she I hate to use this phrase because it's been so played out, but like so understands the assignment, however she had to get there, like the kabuki of the performance, the intonation, the way that she talks, it's so clearly building towards this particular mode and she embraces it and owns it. It feels like very
It's also just funny that she doesn't get the credit for it at the time. The validation happens right after this.
Right after. She becomes
2001, everyone's like,
quote,
you know what? She's proven herself.
It's The Others and Moulin Rouge.
Those two in 1 year. And then by the time she wins the Oscar the following year, she's almost viewed as overdue.
And overrated. Yeah. Like, I would say pretty quickly people turned on her. And that sort of Stepford Wives, Bewitched era, people are like, oh, what the hell? Did she just win because she had a big nose in the hours or whatever?
It quickly went from like, is she just famous? Is she a movie star? To Die For, was she just cast right?
Right.
Did Vincent get a good performance out of her?
Did she really want to chase Batman and Batman Forever? Or was her character's name just Chase?
Was there any correlation between the two?
People get obsessed with all the symbolism in this movie, obviously, but this party is filled with all the weird, like, shapes in lights and all that stuff. But anyway, I mean, that's
also filled with Nick Nightingale.
Oh, and he's there playing the piano. That prick piano player.
What do they say? Never a doctor, never a doctor. Great line. But speaking of doctors, if Tom Cruise was your doctor, my feeling is you would literally never die. But
well, I would also be like, can you check my boobs again? And he'd be like, I did that like 10 minutes ago. I'd be like, I don't know. Maybe you should check again.
But the thing is, I would be like, could I please have any of the several prescriptions I need to function as a human being? And he would be like, get out of my office.
Right.
So it'd be a real balancing act.
Yes. Todd Field is someone I would like to see. I'm very excited to see Tar.
I just met him for the first time, which I never thought would happen.
Cool.
Very exciting.
I would. Hey, David.
Yeah, he already told me about me.
Fact about your eidetic memories. So now we're all just talking up ourselves.
I would love to see Todd Field do a little Sydney Pollack sidebar acting career.
Again,
come back. It's been 20 years plus. I'm like, show up in other good directors' movies sometimes. He's so good in this.
He is great in this. He's like genuinely great.
And obviously his last acting role?
No, well, he was of course in Jan de Bont's The Haunting.
Oh yeah.
After this.
The same year.
Same year. And then he was in like 3 movies that do not like exist. Okay. So it is the tail end. Obviously, he makes In the Bedroom in 2001, right? So like he's about to work on being a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And Leon Vitale, like this is such a big moment for him. Like Leon Vitale goes and produces or associate produces.
Go marry Leon Vitale.
I would love to. He's sadly no longer with us, but I don't know if they'll tell me. But and he produces Little Children or associate produces.
Yeah. And Kubrick was, I think, by all accounts, recognized that he had potential as a director, that his interests were going that way, and brought him into the process a little more in a Vitale sort of way of like, I'm going to let you learn.
I mean, what cooler thing, especially given how long the production was. And Field has essentially like, he's in a lot of the movie because he's the piano player.
Yeah.
He has the 2 big scenes, but then he's also in the fucking orgy.
Right.
So he must have been on set a ton. Right. Yeah. Like, which is probably pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've said this to Griffin, I need to rewatch In the Bedroom and Little Children. I don't think I've seen either of them since theaters.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Little Children trailer?
The trailer is unbelievable.
Well, because we were all, that's the thing, we were all like, oh shit.
Here we go.
Like this thing's going to win Oscars.
Yeah.
And then it came out and everyone was like, pretty weird. What's with the narrator?
You love that movie?
I do. But this is also going to be.
This thing, I remember liking it. I don't remember it that well. And
I mean, the trailer really captures the vibe of the movie, which is surprising, given how sort of particular the trailer is. But this is going to be the least cool thing that anyone has ever said on any podcast. But I literally, we had like 6 or 7 people over our house the other night, and we just like, I put on the Little Children trailer. We were not just like out of the blue. We were watching trailers for like new films. But I was like, hey, I had Tar in the brain. We watched the Tar trailer. That's what it was. And then I was like, we got to put on the Little Children trailer in like 240p on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was like quietly losing my mind. People were like, all right, trains.
I mean, Tar's his first movie in 17 years? What's the time span there?
16. Yeah, 16 years. Yeah.
When we were promoting The Tick, Jackie Earle Haley, who was on the first season of The Tick and obviously was in Little Children, got an Oscar nomination.
But not in the trailer, which is so weird. Anyway.
Yeah, but an interesting thing where it felt like they were really kind of hiding. Like your exposure to him had to solely happen within the context of seeing the actual movie. We were talking, I was asking questions about that movie and that performance, and he went, that guy's such a good director. Griffin, if you ever get a chance to be in one of his movies, you should not turn that down. And I think about all the time where I'm like, the generosity of that statement. Acting like, first of all, here's a guy who
acting like you would be like, Field wants me for his first movie.
I'm like, first of all, he hasn't made a movie in 10 plus years.
Griffin, I wrote this film for you. It's called Tar. You play embattled conductor.
He was just like, Griffin, I really would encourage you to, if you can get cast in one of his movies, do that. And I'm like, yes, I would.
If I can't get Newman, Blanchett apparently said she'll do it, but I really want Newman. Todd Field great in this movie. Nick Nightingale, what a G.
Yeah.
Seriously. By the way, if I'm Nick Nightingale, I'm dropping Fidelio to the first friend I see where I'm like, I have to tell you something. And they play piano at a crazy orgy.
You're getting murdered.
I know.
Well, okay, but
I couldn't keep it to myself. There's
no
no
part
way.
Is not that hard. Also.
No.
No, the music he's playing, they could probably get a player piano. Like
it's more complicated than the score to this film, but it's not.
Sure, I'm saying he's like an accomplished jazz pianist. Like, what he's playing at that orgy is not that.
But do you think?
No, but you need. This is the exact level of guy you need. Is like a journeyman. I mean, I just love Cruise's like confusion by his existence. Where it's like you have 4 kids.
Yeah, you're Seattle.
Married. You're in Seattle. And it's like, is this your usual band? And he's like, I met these guys an hour ago.
No, but this is...
Where do you usually play? Wherever they let me. And it's like, how do you have this little control over your life?
This is my question. Do you think he plays the orgy, he gets like $200K, no questions asked?
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fucking orgy from the richest people alive.
That's not even my orgy.
Yeah, but I feel like
saying,
those
people... It's like you just do that twice a year. You come out to New York for the orgy twice a year. You get a briefcase full of money, and then the rest of your life can be like, I play in jazz.
My guess is he gets 20 to 40,000 for playing the orgy, and the reason they hire him is they know he's the kind of guy who doesn't think to ask for 200,000.
Yeah, well, that probably is true. So he gets 20K.
Right, he gets like 20K, and he's like, "Can you believe they pay me 20K?"
I mean, and to be fair, he does just have to sit blindfolded and go like, do.
Right. But if someone had a better sense of like, this is your crazy sex orgy, I'm holding secrets, you should pay me out the nose, then they don't want him.
No, but I think if you say, hey, I know some secrets, they're like, well, I know a secret. This is a gun. And I think you need someone who's kind of not good.
Yeah, I don't think the interview process is all that long or involved.
Right, and that the thing that like he's most, the one thing he belies to Cruise is like, they're like great tits at this party. Like he's not really upset. He understands this is a high stakes. The man has
4 children.
Right.
He'll take what he can get.
This is a secret thing, but he's not like, there's some fucked up shit going on here. He's like, you wouldn't believe the nips in this place. Like he's just basic enough to not really be of risk to them.
My big question about the orgy, and I don't think we're quite there yet, is just, it's supposed to be all these like 40, 50, 60-year-old masters of the universe. Mm-hmm. They don't start fucking until they don't even get there.
Ram Man.
Right. They don't get there until 2 a.m. They don't start fucking until maybe 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. I'm asleep at like 11. Like there's just...
Yeah, but these guys are doing snowballs, Ehrlich.
Dropping dead.
Yeah.
That's a lot to ask of an old man.
No, it does feel like this would be an afternoon activity.
I know it's less mysterious and cool, but like you guys kind of want to stay awake through this.
Well, I think it's like David says, though. They do it maybe once a year.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a conference. It's a sex conference.
Right.
You get yourself... You have to prepare yourself ahead of time.
Also, a lot of international
hyped
plans.
up for like a midnight movie at a festival because it's like, I don't have to do this every day. You
A
know?
lot of international members. I think a lot of people are in different time zones. They're trying to find a neutral.
Oh, that's the move, is that you fly in from, I have to do the math in my head where it would work best.
I don't know, Minsk or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
Fly
it's
from
like,
Minsk.
well, for me, this is 10 a.m. or whatever. Yeah.
I'm ready to bang.
10 a.m. the perfect time to bang. The banging hour, I call it.
So
you have always said that. It's weird.
I have always said that. I say that the first time I meet anybody.
And usually, wildly out of context. Like to my child the first time you meet.
Yeah, I said, Asa, 10 o'clock's the banging hour.
Asa goes to bed late these days, doesn't he?
I mean,
you'd be real Asa awake at hours where I'm like, no.
Asa is
daddy
ready
alone
to
time.
rock, when the orgy master comes in.
Yeah.
Also, I know David...
Asa would think it was fun if a guy in a big red cloak was walking around, right? Yeah.
What's he doing?
Sims prides himself on being a top-tier texter.
Yeah.
It's one of the aspects of your life I feel like you show the most pride in.
Embarrassing that I take any pride in that, but yes,
it's
you're
true.
right. No, you're right.
I'm calling it out. Our own Marie Barty recently posted a screenshot on her social media of her text exchange with your son Asa.
It was
Asa's coming for the crown.
Because Asa, well, he'll text like Asa.
Well, no, the first text was Marie.
Sure.
And Marie responded, David.
Right.
And then the next text was poop.
Yes.
And then Marie said, is this my friend Asa? Mm-hmm. And then he responded, Asa.
So are you typing these for him? Is he dictating?
No,
what's going
this
on?
is a sad symptom of me letting my son spend too much time with my phone, is that he has taught himself how to read and write on like the Bjork Spotify page for the most part.
Cool.
But he ordered an Uber the other day.
Which to be fair, my daughter also
which does not require read and write, but I got there just in time. I had to pay $3 for it. He'd also sent the Uber driver nonsense, like pages of nonsense.
That Uber driver's probably like easy. Another baby. Like, does that happen? Like, this is clearly a baby.
But he'll text my mom and he'll be like, Franma. And so she'll know it's Asa because her name's Fran. He calls her Franma.
Okay.
And then he'll just be like poop. And he'll be like, I love you. And it'll be like pee. It's a good bit. It's a good bit.
Ace of rolls. They go home from the party. They're smoking some pot.
Yes.
And they just fucking get into it, the two of them.
Oh, boy,
she delivers really upsetting news.
Which is
this vision, this like sex dream that she had.
She had a fantasy about a hot Cape Cod Navy man. And it was so hot that she thought about leaving her husband.
And
it's after her doing 10 minutes of like, come the fuck on, you're horny, admit it. And Tom Cruise is like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right,
like,
right. She's goading him
engage with this.
Like
the pot is making you aggressive.
Fuck them?
Right.
It's kind of turning her on. Those women wanted to fuck him.
Yeah.
And then she reveals this thing that completely changes his understanding of reality. It's so good that it's not an actual affair, that it's not even like a close brush misconnection, like the dance with the scary Nordic man, that it is just like, I had this notion and it got me really worked up and I've thought about it a lot.
But and what's crucial about that is it's not about sex. If it were about fucking someone else for real, that would be push it more into explicitly sexual territory. This is about desire, and in Bill's case, the idea that she's incepting him with, that his wife has this like life of the mind outside of him in their marriage.
Right, because if it was she cheated on him or came close to cheating on him, he could frame that as a moral failing. Right. But this is your unconscious mind.
And it's not just like, you don't get the sense that he has turned her into like a don't worry darling style, like two-dimensional figure. Like he knows that she has agency.
And she's some really bad movies.
Yeah, that she's, well, you know, everything's going to look that bad in comparison to Eyes Wide Shut, but don't worry darling doesn't need the help. But like I think you get the sense that he respects her as a woman and a person and a partner, and that she's an accomplished, she's, you know, has done impressive things in her life and so on. But he is... the mind-blowing realization for him is that it suddenly opens the door just enough into all these alternative possibilities of what life could be.
She thinks it's like we're stoned and we're saying shit we usually wouldn't say.
Right.
It's sort of the game
let's do. Come on, we were just at this party. We were flirting with other people. Let's fucking like come on.
How will you react to this? And it just immediately destroys his complete understanding of reality. And her.
And her too, but he's really going through the like, wait, should I have fucked X people in the past?
Right.
Should I be doing this in the future? Is my wife going to leave me? Am I even a man? The pot is should I put those Uggs back on? They were so comfy.
The pot is making me aggressive.
Yeah, the pot's making everyone aggressive.
Yeah. It is their performances are so strange in this scene.
So strange. And it really is. Imagine this movie in 1999, you're going to see it and you're like, what's this about? When they're doing this, I can really imagine the most of the audience is just so turned off.
Seeing this movie for the first time, this is the scene where I go, okay, so this is an interesting failed movie. And then it starts to build for me after this and get to the point where I'm like, this is a masterpiece. And even every time I've rewatched it, when I get to this scene, I go like, am I overrating this a little bit in my mind? When I got to this scene last night, I was like, so Barry Lyndon is better than this by a hair. But part of it is... their performances are so strange. They're operating at a frequency they do not, for the rest of this movie, a frequency that I would argue is not matched by any other performance in any other Kubrick movie. It's so weird, but it does sort of make sense in this way of when you are very stoned and suddenly find yourself in a serious conversation,
right?
And your grasp on reality,
your
voice,
like,
your body.
What argument can I even make right now? I don't understand.
Right. But it's also one of the first scenes of the movie that's really imploring you, forcing you out of looking at it through a realistic lens.
Yes.
It's all about, for me, the most important detail of their apartment, beyond the fact that literally every fucking square inch of wall space is covered in a painting. I mean, many of them by Kubrick's wife, but it's just like a little bit much, you guys. Learn about negative space. But is the windows. The windows reveal every time you look at them that they are on a soundstage. They make no real attempt to make it look like a real cityscape. It's just blue and black with little squares of yellow.
It is incredibly easy to do. Like the amount of times you are watching movies or TV shows where, you know, especially in a pre-green screen era, it is just a still backdrop behind the window and your eyes never clock it. He is choosing to let it look this otherworldly.
He doesn't want you to think about this scene as if it's super realistic. He also doesn't want you to think about it in like a sort of Lynchian, like this is just a dream. It's like doesn't, you know, it's unmoored from reality sort of way. It has to occupy that middle space, which it does.
Yes. But as we're saying, I mean, Cruise is just going more and more into like Philip Seymour Hoffman is threatening me with the rabbit foot to kill my girlfriend.
Or it's like you were having a fucking argument with someone on the playground and then suddenly you're like in a courtroom or whatever. Right. It's just like the shift of it to something really existential for their marriage is frightening.
And Kidman, as we're saying, is like every line reading is 700th take energy of just, I need to do something different.
But this is where you feel it the most, the many takes. God, it just feels like they're trapped in this argument. They can't get out of it. Yes.
You would believe if you were told that this scene was 6 months.
This is
straight in and of itself.
TMI
and then it ruined their marriage.
A podcast is popular, but like my wife recently...
You're going to be TMI? Okay.
But my wife recently ordered that exact lingerie set that Nicole Kidman is wearing with like I didn't say anything.
Shout out Elise.
Bought it. And I was like,
David's racist proof.
What's up?
What message are you trying to send here?
Yeah, I guess.
What's the subtext? Is the plot making you aggressive?
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise's hair is doing such incredible acting in this scene.
It's just
the way that it dangles,
insane.
Oh, you can feel the unraveling tension, but also so tight.
Look, we've covered so many Tom Cruise movies on this podcast because he is a director who works with so many butchers.
He's what? He's the best what?
It's his best hair. I'm
his hair in this movie is outrageous.
Can you pull up that blank check meta? This Twitter account that I love that every day posts a different actor and how many times they've been covered on the show.
Yeah, it's a great account. What is the account called? Let me find it.
I'm just curious what the current Cruise count is, especially with the Mission Impossibles on Patreon. But I don't know if there's an actor whose hair...
Hanks is another one, obviously.
Hanks obviously way up there, but I think Cruise might be number one now.
Well, yeah, he's got two
Carrie
tweets.
Fisher also was way up there.
Well, the Star Wars one's been...
But then, like, When Harry Met Sally...
I know, but it's still Star.
I know.
Jerry Maguire, Vanilla Sky, Jack Reacher, Never Go Back. That's sort of one. Yeah.
Sure.
Minority Report, War of the Worlds, Ghost Protocol, Collateral. That's 7 plus this would be 8 main feed movies. And then you have 6 Mission Impossible movies and The Mummy on the on the special feature.
I just don't know if any other actor's hair is this versatile.
So versatile.
When it is genuinely
the Daniel Day-Lewis of hair.
When it's genuinely their hair and it's not like he's doing some crazy like in this one I got a perm.
No, and his hair is perfect and it's exactly what it should be.
It's always perfect.
Yes.
Has
he ever made a mistake?
There's no Da Vinci Code weird hair, I would argue.
I don't love the longer hair in like Mission Impossible 2, but I
think it fits the time.
I do. I think it's almost always the right hair for that moment, that movie.
Sure. I mean, it is iconic in its way, but it's as someone who doesn't really think about actors' hair, I was nervous about watching the trailer for the new Mission Impossible because I was like, what's the hair going to be?
What's the hair?
If I don't like the hair,
it's very similar.
Ruin my life.
It's very similar to his recent.
Yeah. Because for a while, Mission Impossible would fluctuate every other film.
But now he's just kind of.
Yeah.
Because he has long hair in 2 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think the missions tend to be a little more impossible when they're shorter. Not like the buzz cut, but I like when they're shorter. I think that Ghost, what's the next one called? Fucking Rogue.
Dead Reckoning.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Is, I can't wait. But I think that's the ideal length.
I hope it's a good movie.
Really,
they should call it
Mission
Impossible Close
Cut.
Cut.
It stinks.
I would hate that so
It would really suck.
I cannot tell you.
You know what that movie's
watched the Way of Water trailer, the Wakanda Forever trailer, and the Dead Reckoning trailer
like a lot.
At least once a week for each, and just go like, I need one of these.
I think all 3 of those are going to work.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So, but Bill goes out into the night. He
gets the
for like
phone
half
call.
of this movie.
Yeah.
He gets the phone call that a patient died.
Right.
And he goes to that house, and that's where Marion, the daughter, tries to seduce him.
It's funny how little...
in this weird way where she's like, I love you, let's run away together. And he's like, you've literally never talked to me outside of the context of your father's illness.
Right.
But I'm with her. I love him too.
And then a guy, her partner comes in who's like
Thomas
trying
Gibson.
to be...
Greg.
It's Greg.
Greg. From Dharma
and Greg.
Oh, that means nothing to me. I know Jenna Elfman, but
was fired
I just think
from
of her
Criminal
as Can't
Minds
Hardly
for
Wait.
kicking somebody.
Famously kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just get big like Rodrigo Santoro in Love Actually vibes, like the prototype of that.
No, it's insane that Rodrigo Santoro is in Love Actually.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry, carry on.
No, the fact that he's Greg, that it's like...
It's Greg.
I guess he hires him before Dharma.
It would be funny if she was Dharma. She was like, I just love you. And I also love Eastern medicine. Or whatever Dharma did.
He must get cast in this movie before Dharma and Greg premieres.
Of course.
By the time this movie comes out, Dharma and Greg is already a hit.
He was cast in this movie before like Must See TV existed.
But Jenna Elfman was a prominent...
this movie before I Love Lucy premiered.
She was a prominent Scientologist, right? Maybe he carried the message to her. Maybe he
possibly, or maybe he recommended Elfman to Greg. I don't know. The point is, at this point, he's shorthand for like uptight, normal sitcom man.
What's going on? Yeah.
Right. Well, me and my wacky wife. There's something just so funny of the reveal of like, oh no, my husband's coming, and it's fucking Greg walking down a hallway being oblivious. But yes, it is. You have a scene where this woman sort of acknowledges the weird movie star pull of Cruise.
Yes, right.
I'm
obsessed with you.
When the last 30, 40 minutes of this movie have largely been cucking him.
Yeah, well.
And deflating him. But he's even questioning his
not right. I think he's not even, he does feel unstable at the idea that his wife could cheat on him. But I think he's also having the feeling of like, should I have been cheating on my wife?
Yeah.
Like, am I actually an asshole? Should be Sydney Pollacking my way around town?
And what happens in every subsequent scene for the next hour of this movie is someone tries to have sex with him.
Yeah.
And it goes
and they cut the scene where I tried.
They sure did. It was weird that they shot that.
Movie.
But you were in England at the time, so it all checks out. But like, and everyone, there's lots of kissing, which you also like.
I do love kissing. And I love Vanessa Shaw.
There's even kissing with the mask. I mean, we'll get to Vanessa Shaw in that dress. But
there's even 69ing with the mask, which feels a little counterproductive.
Yeah, it feels obtuse.
There's no mouth slits there. You're just rubbing plaster lips.
But what's interesting about what Griffin said in the scene is that, like, yes, that is the charm that he's radiating. It's the first time we feel it. But he's also, again, in a subservient position. He's a hired hand of this ultra-rich family.
Yeah.
He's making house calls. Which is not something that normal people, myself, when this was happening in my family, like, we don't afford.
Also making a house call to confirm that a guy has died.
Right, and he just like feels his head.
Walking into a dead body in a room.
It's so, it says so much though about like the fact that he's making house calls still.
Yes.
At all.
Yes.
But it just makes complete sense that it would be like super rich people can basically get whatever they want.
Yeah. But it's also like, I think he wants to get out there. Like he likes to leave the house and just go like have that feeling of people who need him or in his thrall.
Yeah.
It's like his kink.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, I can see that too. It's definitely a great excuse to get out of having that conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
So I got to go dead body to check out.
He's just praying like someone die.
Yeah.
That's when he meets Domino. Right after the dead guy. Right after he meets Greg. Domino played by Vanessa Shaw, aka, my wife. She's the best. When is she bad?
Never.
You know what she's incredible in?
Two Lovers.
That's right.
Yep.
Oh man. James Gray season approaches. What's that scene is so fascinating because she is the platonic ideal of like a normal man's perfect what's like sex worker.
Yeah.
Like that, like she is a very nice grad student who doesn't seem like she does this a lot.
Charmingly
She's
messy.
Very pretty, charmingly messy. It's just right here. It's very warm. We're gonna have a nice time. I'm gonna speak of you fondly afterwards. It is like cartoonish to the degree that it is a fantasy for someone who wants to like do a little dalliance in paying for sex.
Yeah. She was a child actor. She's of course in Hocus Pocus and was in some other stuff. And then
she wasn't in Hocus Pocus. She fucking
owns
exactly.
Hocus Pocus.
Yes, she owned my heart.
But
in
she in the
Hocus
sequel?
Pocus. Good question.
Premieres
Probably
tonight.
not.
Greg, does it premiere tonight?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like she's in
Why
the
is that a
sequel.
September release?
It's premiering tonight. I don't know.
But wait for October 1st. Literally wait like
it's
3
true.
days.
Could you wait 3 days? Come on.
We've waited for 25
It's fucking
years.
Tuesday.
I know.
Like we have to be premiering Hocus Pocus on a random Tuesday, September.
I'm just like October 1st. I would remember that's when it's coming out.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, all Disney Plus original
You'd be able
movies are great.
You'd be able to tell your grandkids exactly the day Hocus Pocus 2 premiered.
Yeah.
Remember.
When was it? It should have been October 1st, but I think it was end of September.
I mean, the Domino thing is like it's like, what if you were approached by a sex worker, like, who was Vanessa Shaw in the most stunning dress.
Yes.
And she was just like, I'll take care of everything. Just come back to my apartment and making out with you on the street. Like this absolute dream world, like vibes.
The thing I was going to say, child of actors, works as a child actor, takes several years off, goes to college, isn't sure she wants to act again, gets called in by Kubrick. And there's a very charming story, I think it's in the dossier, that like Kubrick put his hand on her shoulder after a take and was like glowing. And he was like, I'm so excited for you to have the career that I know you can have.
Hell yeah.
Which just sort of like...
She should have had a better one.
She should.
God bless, she's had a good career.
And she still works, but she's one of those people who always feels like is undervalued while being totally consistent pro. But that she was like, I was at a point where I was like, acting was a thing I did when I was a kid. I don't know if I really want to do this ever again. And he was the guy who made her feel that not only could she have a career doing it, but that she enjoyed doing it and felt a sense of autonomy over doing it. And she said she felt really empowered by how much he was telling her, like, you're going to do incredible stuff.
Yeah. Well, she does rule, but their encounter, of course, is set. Every time he's tempted,
he gets the kiss.
He makes out with her, and they go to her apartment, and then he's
nice
like,
work if you can get it.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah,
you get paid to kiss Tom Cruise. Continuing my.
Oh, I was saying Vanessa Shaw picture.
Well, yeah.
Either way,
but and he does the sort of like, I think I should go.
Oh, David's doing a very good physical Cruise. I think I should.
And he's got the fucking jacket, and it feels like there's this force field on him.
It's also Christmas.
It is Christmas.
That's like
weird
another
fake Christmas.
It's another thing that is very off-putting about like the fact that he's cheating on his wife, mother of his children, but it's holidays.
One very precocious child.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's sad that it's like for her too, thinking about her character that like
she's working on Christmas, picking up, waspy doctors walking the streets. I mean, that's the thing. If I'm a very high-powered sex worker, I might at Christmas be like, there's going to be some rich guy having an existential crisis if I just walk up and down Fifth Avenue.
But there's that, but he's like red meat for her. She sees him and she's like, oh my God,
no,
this is perfect.
She's
and so there's this really sweet feeling of them both sort of looking for each other and being drawn to each other. It is sort of, Ben's talking about Christmas, like the gift of the Magi, this between Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Like they're both going out into the world in their ways and like looking for the thing that their partner needs in the most fucked up ways. But
everyone calls this a classic. Now the take is it's boring to say Eyes Wide Shut is a classic Christmas movie now, right? It's like it's like 10 years ago saying Die Hard is a classic Christmas movie. Now it's just like we all accept.
Do you think Die Hard's a Christmas? We should litigate this.
What's going on? When's it set?
I think the fun take that we can start right here is that we're reclaiming it as the Jews' Christmas movie. It's like Chinese food on Christmas. It's
Absolutely.
like
I mean, I watch it often at Christmas.
Is Eyes Wide Shut secretly a great Hanukkah movie?
Oh, wow. Is it the only Hanukkah movie?
He has one crazy night.
He has one crazy night, and there is a miracle.
And there's
he doesn't get killed.
His light should have been extinguished at the end of this night, and somehow it kept burning.
When the girl woke up with Sydney Pollack went, "It's a Hanukkah miracle! No more speedballs."
Yeah. Tend to the girl for a second. I gotta light another candle for the third night.
I gotta spin a dreidel over here. Gimel. Good.
I think I wanted to say. Much has been talked about Kubrick's weird artificial New York in this movie.
Yes.
Which people at the time...
theater of the mind.
Right, but people went like, it looks nothing like New York. He's failed. This is the downside to his hermetic whatever. It's mostly this one major street set they built.
Two streets that intersect.
There are only a couple things that are actually shot in the streets of London, but they built like this big sort of intersection.
Yeah.
And then they would flip it sometimes in the shot so that they could change the orientation of it. And every time they shot a new scene there, they'd redress all the businesses to make it look different. But you're basically reusing this same intersection over and over again. And a thing that's talked about a lot with this movie is like, there are very few extras. Right. There's pretty much no one on a street.
It is Christmas time.
Unless they exist to actually interact with this character.
Right.
They're going to call him a homophobic slur. They're going to hit on him.
Right. They're going to offer him a cloak.
It's a snow globe. I mean, the movie is meant to
He's
feel
in
like
his fucking brain.
Right. And I think people viewed this as a failing of like, well, New York City's not like this. It's a city that never sleeps. They're constantly
no one's selling hot dogs out of water.
But it is the thing that is very spooky if you ever find yourself in a part of New York that is just quiet.
Yes.
If suddenly you walk down a street where no one is,
especially at a time like some holiday weekend or whatever,
whether because you're lost in the wrong part of town or just for whatever reason, there's no one here. You have an accidental midnight Vanilla Sky moment.
But I think one of the big secrets they do to make it feel like it's, still hermetic, but not just literally two streets, is that they have him take a cab from one part of the village to another part of the village, which is just like, it's like it would have been half as fast to walk it or twice as fast.
I totally believe it with this guy.
Yeah. He doesn't, right.
Well, I mean, he did not have the best walk over to that part of town. So.
What if there was a really wise hot dog vendor who said like, what's most important is family. It's like putting the hot dog.
But this movie, there's, I think interesting to look at this movie against After Hours in certain ways, right?
Another movie that Stanley Kubrick adored.
Yes, and one of my favorite movies of all time.
About a wild, crazy night in New York City.
The Great American Griffin movie, in many senses.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a movie that is very obsessed with the actual realities of 80s New York City and is the same one crazy night.
But it's shot in locations and it's
absolutely
very much,
right.
Feels like you're in New York.
But it's also a movie where all this guy wants is for this night to end.
Right.
And Eyes Wide Shut has the vibe of this guy being like, what if I just push this a little bit further?
Because he's like, if I go to sleep, then it's back to normal.
Yeah.
That feeling of, look, on the lowest scale level, that feeling of a bar is closing, you leave a bar, you're walking to the subway, impulsively go like, what if I go into a different bar? What if I just don't go home?
It sounds like a Griffin thing.
What if the house until like 11?
Right,
right.
No, I know, but he's doing the thing like in Minecraft when you're just like, one more tunneling session,
right.
and I'm not going to die.
What if I just do another thing?
What if I just keep drinking?
So he goes and meets
Ben gets it.
Nick Nightingale, the legend, and they're chatting.
Right.
And Nick Nightingale gets a phone call.
3 performances in one night.
Yeah,
the man works.
Fucking working. Yeah,
playing the saddest looking jazz club of all time.
The party they go to the beginning of the movie
was the night before.
Oh,
That's
okay,
true.
okay. I'm sorry. Still, he feels like the Ray Romano of jazz pianist. I'm gonna do 3 sets.
I'm gonna do 3 sets and then an orgy.
Go do a stand. They blindfold me. I tell jokes about Deborah.
Deborah.
But there is that feeling that you were talking about earlier, sense of like he's itching, like he knows that this is dangerous.
It's a
but he's
Beethoven
like,
opera.
don't you want to ask?
It does feel
not my
like
last show tonight.
If he had lived another 10 years, Kubrick might have gone like, maybe Ray to play. You could have seen in the line of all his comedic leading men.
The Aryan Papers starring Ray Romano.
No, but for this movie, you could see there being a version in which
I thought you meant his next movie.
Right.
So Nick Nightingale, the G, tells him he's going to need a black cloak, a mask, and a third item. What's the third?
Well,
item?
he sees the password.
He sees the password. Tells him about the orgy. We got to move. But what's the third item? It's a black cloak. They say it so many fucking times. Maybe it's not anything.
He needs a hood. He needs a mask.
Tuxedo.
He needs,
tux. That's what it is. Tux. Cloak.
I love that he goes like, they'll kick you out dressed like this, and you're just like, this is the most upstanding gentleman of New York.
He looks
City. He's got a fucking waistcoat.
You get a great reaction shot of Cruise being like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, do you know how good I look?
But it's that thing, it's that level of like, you don't understand the stratas of wealth, of power, of access.
These people are operating.
This
is the layer beyond you that you think exists. It's like say this movie is just happening in his brain. It's what he thinks he can peek beyond. Right.
I also think there's this interesting thing this movie raises, right? Because the dumb thing of people thinking like, much like the notion that The Shining is him confessing that he faked the moon landing, that a movie like this is Kubrick being like, I have the files on all these perverts and I'm leaving you the clues to solve the mystery after my death.
In 20 short years, you'll figure it out.
That this is his book of Henry. He's leaving instructions for how to fucking fake Epstein's suicide.
I mean, we are going to get a Room 237 about Eyes Wide Shut. I'm probably, hopefully be in it. But
whenever these stories come out about these guys, I do feel like there's the question that everyone sort of stews on where it's like, is it that people this deviant need to achieve the highest levels of success so that they have the security and the sort of insulation to be able to like follow their whims willy-nilly? Or is it that reaching this level of success, having this much money, this much access, completely perverts and breaks your brain?
I think it's chasing the dragon.
I think it's
I think it's like at some point you're like, I have to hunt people now.
Right. It's true.
Because I've shot
You've
all the
conquered
endangered
everything
animals
in the world. The only thing to do is to break laws with impunity.
Right.
But I think Ben's right, because it's like the thing about the orgy, which is again not supposed to be like the hottest thing of all time. It's not supposed to be like, could you imagine something this hardcore? I mean, this is a very chaste film by most standards, at least as far as the subject matter is concerned. But it's about these people who like don't know how to have sex anymore because their minds have been so riddled by riches.
This is the only way these people
They're like, we can only fuck if we make it a fucking ritualistic, like medieval orgy.
And not to jump ahead to the end of the movie, but like when Pollack does his final explanation, I find it in certain ways equally believable that they need to kill people to cover their tracks, and that they need to pretend that they kill people for the theater of their own excitement.
Right. There's a note that Kubrick had in a much earlier draft of the script where he was thinking about like, they have this whole plan. They don't know when they're going to need to use it, but they have it ready to go for when an interloper comes into the orgy.
Right. So it's like, did they execute Ghost Protocol?
Yeah, exactly.
Or is it like, no, our thing is this theater of pretending like we kill people.
It's basically Sleep No More, but like, people
but that is a way you
buy this is just Sleep No More.
Right. When he says, do you guys think that like that's a possibility that this is some big staged whatever.
I think like a possibility.
Like improv events.
The most important thing is
for
that
the rich and
there
perverted.
is not, like, we don't miss the forest for the trees and think it matters.
No, I know that.
I know, it's unknowable. But the first time I watched, I like that it's unknowable. The first time I watched it, I leaned more on the side of Sleep No More. With a mild side of deviancy. And rewatching it this time, I felt like, I think Sydney Pollack's covering their tracks.
Kubrick delights in swapping out the dead actress.
Yes.
Like the person you see in the morgue slab is not the same actress. And it's actually, I mean, I wish I had this handy. I have this whole fucking book sitting on my lap, but there is
Ehrlich has a book with like 40 different little colored tabs.
Here's the most amazing.
Which book is this?
It's just it's the same book that I think JJ was reading.
The
Making You Wise.
Yeah.
But the woman who plays the girl who redeems Tom Cruise has the most incredible quote that I just found, because it was originally supposed to be Mandy who redeems him, the woman from Ziegler's house at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then this actress, Abigail Good, who ends up playing her, says, Davis, who plays Mandy, was a difficult girl to work with, and she was always late. She added that Kubrick liked my long legs. He preferred the way I walk. Or it might have been simply that I had a better body than she did. It's like, Jesus. It's like, you already got the part, man. She's already dead.
It is wild when you get to the party, how it feels like the women pretty much all have identical bodies.
Yes, and it's
they like look
it's unerotic. The G strings, which he was very particular about. Apparently, he was sent basically every cut of women's underwear that existed.
Yeah,
like as he was picking, because he was like, no, not quite right. Are so unsexy. Is that crazy for me to say?
No, it is.
Because they feel like action figures almost. Like the way they're just kind of walking around like
robots.
Our
Showgirls episode, you talked about Pearl Verhoeven's Attack on the Breast.
Right. Yes.
How that movie makes boobs feel upsetting. And this is just a movie where like you're watching incredibly attractive, like, these hourglass model women like fuck on screen, and it just feels like you're watching nature photography.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's weirdly unerotic.
But Kubrick talked all the time about it. This was his most personal movie, and that's such an enigmatic thing for such an enigmatic figure to say.
Yeah.
Well, this is a documentary shot in real time, but
based on true friendship.
He did meet his wife Christiane at an enormous masked ball where he was performing, or she was performing rather, and he was the only one who wasn't in a costume, and he felt like everyone was looking at him.
Wow.
So that like, what I like to think about is like, okay, so I'm a rich evil guy, right?
Congrats.
Can I only come if I'm fucking, anonymous strangers in a room where lots of other people are having sex in a castle or an estate?
Sure.
Or can I only come if I'm doing that and I know there's one new guy here?
Right.
Like, where I'm like, so the new guy's coming, right?
You think there's
like,
always a sacrificial lamb?
That's what I'm saying. Like, can they only do this and be like, and we're going to leave some bait for like some random wasp to show up and think he knows what he's doing,
feel like that's part of what turns them on.
Right.
The whole thing's about power, obviously,
and desire, and like being able to covet the things they already have, and
they love being able to sniff him out. They love being able to kick him out.
Right,
they're not angry that he snuck in,
but like they're like, okay, yeah, sure, 3 hours of mindless masked fucking. Right. Like, when are we having the weird trial of Tom Cruise?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the biggest boner that
jerking
anyone
off under their robes when that's happening.
The biggest boner that anyone gets that night is definitely the moment when Cruise walks into the room and finds them all waiting for him. Yeah, like that's the moment.
But then they don't.
And it's funny that Kubrick put in the boing sound effect.
But then they don't strip him naked, which is like a weird. It's such a good threat. It's much better than like, we're gonna hurt you. It's like, we're going to humiliate you in front of these people.
Because the next day is the greater satisfaction. It's not like, we could take you naked tonight, or we could drive you insane for another 24 hours.
No, for sure.
Another thing where like this movie has gone through tiers of hype where people are like, you're going to see Tom Cruise's dick on screen. You're an hour and a half into this film. Most people haven't seen all the right moves. But you're like an hour and a half into this movie that the audience is probably losing patience for. And you get to the scene where they're like undressed and people are like, here we go. Salacious, indecent.
But like, isn't there something interesting about how it's a movie? They're not all, but most of these robed people have been naked and having sex for hours, and then the idea of him taking his clothes off, you're like, God, that'd be so awful,
so weird
for him to like suddenly be like, okay,
just standing there uncomfortably,
and what, like the weird emasculation of it. It's so effective.
We should just
jump
touch
back to Rachel Beja. Yeah, we got to talk about
a little bit of him. We get a little bit of Rachel.
Jesus Christ, what a performance!
He really
and
does.
Lily
Sobieski put some sauce on it.
A very different vibe from her, but she's doing a great job.
He's doing what's the thermostat thing we say?
Oh, the thermostat performance, where someone is able to enter into a movie and completely change the temperature.
I feel like, would you argue that he's doing that, and this in this film.
Yeah, it's also, this movie has not had a lot of levity. It's been going at a very patient clip.
Yeah.
And now we have a guy in here who's like talking like a person.
Okay, you're in a hurry. I'm in a hurry. He's like Watto. He's the Watto.
He's almost too like much of a sort of like goofy merchant.
Right.
He's like, what was it you said, black? And it's like, what did you think he said, green? Like he said black.
Your mind tricks don't work on me. Only money.
100 I can't do. And he's like, 200. The guy's like, 200. Okay.
Over the asking price.
I do have 2 Japanese guys and my daughter up here, but yeah, sure, $200. I'm unlocking the door.
Red, I give you the outfit. Blue, his mother.
The weirdest thing is he's just like, this is really annoying. And it's like, he literally needs you to go and get something off of a rack and he's going to pay you like double.
You live above it.
You're like, is this hard?
It seems like you were already awake considering how quickly you responded to the thing. Like, he doesn't have groggy energy. This is a guy who feels like he's awake all night.
Wally
Yeah, I was about to say,
up,
I don't think this guy sleeps ever.
No.
Maybe he just kind of like sits in a chair and is quiet for a little bit. But also, so when he sees
doctor, I do my hair, and you're like, is he saying this is a joke or is this a genuine?
like,
I need the cure for male pattern baldness?
And obviously, his reaction to the sight of his daughter with 2 older men wearing wigs and powdered
But another one of these things of what I'm talking about, where you just see something that is inexplicable, that raises so many questions
that you can't ask any
Your perception of reality is immediately changed, and every bit of it makes less sense to you. He knows these men. Why are they dressed like this? It's his daughter. You know, everything about it is strange.
He gets right back to the transaction too.
Yes.
But, you know, he's like, all right, anyway, where were we?
But he's very Claude Rains in Casablanca about this, right? Where he's like, I can't believe you're doing this. What a shocking thing for me to see.
Oh no. The best is when he locks them in the room and he turns to, he's like, I'm with a customer. Right.
Oh, this is so embarrassing for me that you would be doing this. I didn't know about it at all.
Yeah.
And it's so distressing. All the implications of it are so distressing.
Horrible.
Lily Sobieski, who's amazing. It's a tiny role, obviously, but she was such a striking actor at that point.
I mean,
just
she went
her
from
weird,
from Deep Impact and like,
she's amazing at Deep Impact.
Soldier's Daughter Never Cries.
Yeah.
But she probably went from this to Deep Impact, right?
Right. But yes, it's the early sign. It should be the early sign for Cruise of like, you don't want to enter into this world. The things you're going to see are going to raise questions that you don't want answers to.
Right.
It's the underlying sort of stories.
Is monogamy, is the not knowing of monogamy, is that maybe preferable to the I'm going to blow my life up and go and chase all these
stuff
dragons.
Can't unknow about like the depths of human depravity and shit like that. But yes, incredible.
Where the rainbow ends.
Bizarre and strange. He gets his outfit.
And then he arrives, and it is weird when he arrives at the orgy, and he's like, hey guys, and they're like, what's up? And he's like, Fidelio, and they're like, we'll take you up, and they should be like, who are you? Why are you showing up so late?
In a cab.
Yeah.
Okay,
in
also,
a fucking cab where you're like, ripping the $100 bill.
That is
annoying.
An insane
what if
move.
he did this?
So crazy.
It's the craziest thing that happens in this entire
and it's not
film.
It makes me so
What
mad.
if he did this? Rips the $100 bill in half, hands him $100, half the $100 bill, and a roll of Scotch tape. Because then it's like, you're not going to have to do any work putting this back together.
I remember the first time as a kid, I accidentally like ripped a 20 that I was saving up to buy like a Pokemon starter deck or whatever. And my dad was like, if you tape it, it is legal tender. They have to accept it. Even still.
No, it's
anytime I tried to cash a taped up dollar bill, I felt like a jamoke.
Okay, but riddle
it's rude to do it to the guy's face.
I agree.
Oh, it's a dick move. He's got another hundo in there. Like, you can spare it.
But it's also the thing of like, he's still Mr. Power in the cab.
This is the last
and he's
time.
about to stop being that.
His power's been tested the whole night.
Right, and he wants
and he's
to
back in his
assert
zone.
it.
But riddle me this. Where are all the other drivers? Are they all just like in a room together smoking, being like, yeah, another orgy?
That would be funny. There's like Andrew Dice Clay and company, and there's like, these guys
boss
really
is fucking until 5 a.m. again. Jesus.
I'd last 10 minutes up there. And then we're in the orgy.
One of the great sequences in all American film. If you can call this American film. Jocelyn Pook just wilding out.
Apparently Stanley Kubrick told her, let's do some sex music. And she was like, okay.
It's like Barry White. What do you mean? What do you fuck to?
It would be funny if Barry White was at the orgy instead of Nick Nightingale.
Justin Timberlake's in the background doing like sexy back.
I'm waiting for someone to do a cut of that and we can post on Twitter.
It's so scary. I find it all so unsettling. And I do think the first time I watched it was like 2 a.m. in my fucking home in Newcastle where I went to college, like on this little TV. And it really did. And it really did. Like the music and everything. You're just like,
this was happening down
I'm
the street.
not turned on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm so distressed.
Look, not to be gross about it, but like when you're a 13 or 14-year-old boy watching a movie late at night on a TV in your bedroom, and it has this many boobs and it's this impossible to jerk off to, it's almost an accomplishment on a scale that's hard to compare, right?
Yeah, I don't know. What do we think of the orgy?
I mean, it's an incredible sequence. So I think it has that magical power that Kubrick was always looking for.
Yeah.
The sort of magnetic pull of his scenes that he couldn't describe in words. That's why he made movies, and he was able to sort of achieve it and sustain it here. I mean, the Jocelyn Pook music is, even though he literally did say, I want sex music. That's what she came back with. Is incredible.
Well, there's the later also music that's more sexy sounding.
Well, like, I mean, there is.
Anything is more sexy sounding than
but then you have what I would argue,
which is like backwards Hungarian monks or whatever, right? That's what that
later in the sequence we have what, for my money, is one of the great needle drops in all of film, which is the introduction of the Ligeti score, the music for the first time. It's like dun dun dun. I mean, that moment is just
shit
like
rules.
fuck, and
that
like,
gets me hard.
Oh my god, you cut to that wide shot and they're all there. I mean, and then
all
suddenly
their faces, the
and
weird.
you can see that in the pan across all the faces that, or not even the pan, just like the various 3 shots that he has of them, like. That's the image that had haunted him for so many decades. He was like, that's a movie. Like, that's something I need to explore.
Who do you think the guy who nods at him is? Do you think it's Pollack or do you think it's someone else?
I don't. I mean, it's Leon. I mean, it's Leon Vitali.
Yeah, whatever. You and Leon Vitali. I mean, you see Leon Vitali around every corner.
I just want to put a button on this by saying that, like, I truly believe that that performance that he gives as the Orgy Master, which was sort of incidental, they had another actor, you know, he just does it, is so perfect. It's one of those things that holds an entire universe together. The way, the theatricality of it, the menace.
And such a nice capper for a guy who abandoned his acting career to serve at the feet of this dude, that he gets to sort of be this pivotal
imperious king of the evil guys.
I mean, what's the password for the I mean, it's like every line is just burrowed into my soul.
But like another part of Owen Gleiberman's pan that actually feels like a great encapsulation of what is powerful about this movie is when he says, like, Kubrick turned sex into a ritual. And it was like, this movie was supposed to titillate us. He's failed. And it's like, no, it's that thing of you walk into a room where the most beautiful women are doing everything you ever have imagined, your most horny state of mind.
Craziest, sexy
and it instead
scenario,
just reveals, like, wow, sex is weird. This is like weird that we do this. This looks odd.
And the campiness.
Ben doesn't like that, and I'm with him. Sex is great.
No,
High five
sex is
sex.
I like having sex. I want to be very clear.
And I also
but when you look at it from an angle like this, and you especially look at people watching it
it's
happen.
an orgy, right?
But like also, no kink shame against orgies.
No,
it's how they do this orgy that makes it so scary.
It feels joyless.
It
doesn't feel like anyone's enjoying.
No, not at all.
But what's amazing is that it feels joyless, but also super campy by design.
Yes.
And it's campy and scary, and the fact that it's able to be scary while it's campy only makes it scarier.
It's performative, but in a way that's very different than the kind of performative sex we see in porn or in movies.
In movies,
right?
But it's no consent. And even because there's money involved, but like they're being drugged, like it's really fucking.
No, but if you turn up the volume, if you put closed captioning on, you keep on seeing subtitle "Woman Number 6." You have my enthusiasm.
This is good.
Please proceed at this moment.
Yeah, please, let's keep doing this. Come on,
it's like the Pinocchio root beer moment. There's like woman 12. You have my enthusiasm.
You and the plague doctor mask. Get over here.
God, every time I've been watching WALL-E with the subtitles on, and Disney Plus is always like WALL-E moans. And I'm like, is that how I would describe
the atmospheric subtitles?
With WALL-E in particular, it should all be phonetic. They should never describe a WALL-E sound. They should go like,
I've long sort of, I like to entertain the idea. Again, this is not some movie where it needs to be understood, but that this is just he's just having the same experience he had at the Pollack party as a nightmare, right? So he's watching a woman die.
Yeah.
He's in this weird, place of rich people and power.
Sure.
And instead of like the refined thing he saw there with this sort of nasty incident in the bathroom, now he's seeing this like weird nightmare version of it, right?
and the same energy you get with like the bears in like the bear guy giving the blowjob in The Shining, all of the goons. This movie has some of the best goons that have ever been. I mean, that guy with the grease back hair coming out of the back of his mask, who goes up to him and he's like, "Your taxi is waiting." You know, like that's such.
But you asking the question about like, is the guy who gives him the nod Pollack? It's once again, the point is he will never know.
No,
like, he later finds out that Pollack was in that room, but he can't know for a fact that Pollack was the guy who nodded to him.
Right.
And it's as disorienting.
Maybe it was Kidman.
When you're walking down the street, when you're in a public space and someone gives you like a nod or a wave and you're like, I have no idea who that is. I don't know if that was someone I don't remember, if it's someone who thought I was someone else. I will never get an answer to this, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that scene is just has such an incredible sort of super textual power to it. It's just like it has a hold on you, even if you don't always know why. And it seems silly in retrospect, as it would be like for any of the people at the orgy to talk about in clear terms later on, they'd sound ridiculous.
I just also love that it's like his gait is wrong. This woman immediately
she's like, you're in great danger, dude.
You gotta get out of here.
You fucking. And his mask is good. Credit to his mask. I think it's a great mask.
Good. He's got the drip going. It's on point. Yeah.
But
God,
some of those other masks are so scary.
Wouldn't you be pissed if you showed up to the orgy in like the plague doctor mask and you had like a 3-foot, protruberation, whatever, like sticking out of your face?
Yeah.
And you were like, now we're gonna go have sex with this girl. And you're like, I can't. It's just sticking out of your face. Why didn't I just go with the flat mask?
Right. Yeah.
So there's this thing that does feel staged in a way, where the woman sacrifices herself, where it's almost like she's like, I invoke orgy law, and like I will give myself.
I volunteer tribute.
Right.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, she invoked it, of course, because she is allowed, as we all know, the bylaws.
If only
of the orgy.
Senate could work that clearly, right? Jeez.
You are free to go, but don't come back. And it does. I do like the idea that when he leaves, they're all like, oh, that was great.
That was great.
Yeah.
And then we get like one of many great
And then there's an
hard
hour
cuts
of the movie to go.
Well, yeah, because like, and you would think given the pace at which this movie's gone, that we might get some business of him leaving and traveling home. But the second half of the movie is defined by these really hard, and in some cases, like shot cuts to like time passing.
Whereas up until this point, there's been a lot of crossfades.
A lot of walking.
A lot of walking, but a lot of crossfades.
He's been fucking Edward Burnsing it. In the sidewalks
I
of New York.
saw Edward Burns on the sidewalks of New York the other day. I texted you guys immediately. He looked
like a snack.
Handsome.
Yeah, he's
a handsome guy.
It was pretty absurd.
He's a handsome guy. And he's from Brooklyn.
I saw a movie once called 27 Dresses, and the moral of that movie is that Edward Burns is very handsome.
That's true. Don't trust him, though, as is the moral of the holiday
funny.
in every other movie he was in.
You were talking about how it's like this absurdly handsome guy, and his career became like, I'm a schmo in his own movies, and then other people's movies, it's like, don't fall in love with this
I'm a real
guy.
jerk. But no, it was the rewatchables did Saving Private Ryan, and they were just like, it's so weird that he was like, I'm the next Woody Allen, and then every movie he writes and directs, he's like, I just can't get laid in this city.
They stuff in this city.
God, I'm so angsty.
Yeah.
You're
married to Christy Turlington. You're doing great. He went from Heather Graham to Christy Turlington.
Yeah.
They've been married for like 20 years. He looked incredible.
So the entire
I went up to him and I said, Fidelio.
And he was like,
Get out of here.
I can't get that reference.
I'll do that shit in
I'm walking here. Hit a cab.
But so he gets home, and it turns out that Nicole Kidman's been having a night of her own, and she's been having this crazy dream.
They were intercutting with these fantasy sequences. He's dreaming about her getting rogered.
Right.
By,
it's him imagining what she described imagining, right?
By cabin boy?
So we're like,
it's an old British joke.
we're like 2 degrees away from reality, right? It's his conception of her conception of what this hypothetical affair would have been like.
Right.
And Kubrick didn't let Cruise on set when they were filming the show.
Famously,
didn't let him see the footage.
This is the biggest part of this sort of like psychological torture, quote unquote, concept.
So Cruise was really caught up in the, I don't know what happened on that set, especially because Kubrick was like, we're going to film you in every position. Like, you are going to be involved in the process. You have final approval over what happens. But I want to get a lot of footage of a lot of different sexual acts. And Cruise just has no ability to watch this, no oversight of this. When you think about every movie after this, he is the main producer, save for Magnolia. He is a guy who is involved in every single aspect of production. And it's like his first movie as a producer is Mission Impossible right before this. And then he makes 2 movies where he doesn't have control, and then he goes back to I never don't have control again.
Yeah.
Must have driven him crazy.
Yeah, it probably was pretty intense. Making this movie seemed pretty intense.
And she was similarly in the dark with what he was filming. And as Kubrick notoriously does, a lot of the scenes would get rewritten on the day. They'd improvise. They'd rewrite based on the improvs. They'd refine the scene. I mean, the process of this movie was they built these sets, and he would like get there in the morning and spend hours figuring out the lighting scheme with like a Polaroid camera doing tests. And then Todd Field said they filmed only at nights. So they would show up and the set was like perfectly lit to his specifications. And then they'd get there with the script pages and they go like, so let's figure out what we're shooting. And then it was a couple hours of like litigating, like, let's get rid of this. What feels more natural, this and that. And then once the scene has taken shape, it's like everything's set to go. Now we're just going to do it 1,000,000 times until I feel happy. But they didn't have to be there for lighting, for blocking. You know, it was like...
But there's this feeling of like this psychic connection between Alice and Bill and what's going on there. Like he's enacting it in the physical world, so to speak, and she is dreaming, although it could be said that he's in a dream and she is, you know, somewhere else. But that they have both been having this twinned experience in a way.
Right. She had this sort of dream of an orgy as well, like essentially. Like, but he was witnessing it. And, and she was laughing at it.
Right. Yeah.
And she's very upset about it.
This is, I think, her best scene in the movie.
It is. It's an incredible scene. And it's kind of her last big scene in a way until she says fuck. Right? Like, well, and I would flip her a supporting actress.
But she also, like, she does more in like cuts and like, you know, one shots where she doesn't say anything. Like when after he tells her the whole night later on in the movie where she's just bleary eyed, that is just devastating.
Yes, there's also that one time they cut to her early and she's like watching TV and smoking. Yeah, that just one glimpse of her. Yeah.
Amazing.
What a movie.
So now we're in the cold light of day.
Yes, it's truly the cold light of day. You go to the hotel to find Nick. Nick was checked out by some very big men, so it tells us.
I love that he's like kind of... I just love when someone's like, I'm a detective, right? There's a mystery and I need to solve it, but they're not drawn to it because they're being paid as a private investigator or they're a cop. It's just like, it's just, he has to know. He's so driven.
Yeah.
But I think Alan Cumming kills. This is the guy who's like, I'm a bit naughty. I want to tell you something. There were very big men that took him out. You know, like that's sort of like, you know.
But it's this level of like, is he titillated by this? Is he testing Cruz's sexuality?
Right. There's so we now have, you know, this first random encounter with another character after that long night. And we're having the same sort of flicker of desire. Someone's pulled to him.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's possible to see sort of like a homophobic reading of this because the reality of it now that it's sort of in the cold light of day and it's less pleasant is that it's a gay man who's coming on to him rather than a woman. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but I do think that there's an element of like the sexual interest in Bill now is starkly unwanted. Which,
Bill's like, I already,
that's more my read of it.
He goes.
It's a thing he's not tempted by.
He goes to give the cloak back, and at that point, Milich is just sort of like, I don't care what my daughter's doing.
Well, the two businessmen come out, and the daughter comes out after him, and he's like, last night you were saying those guys would get arrested. You could call the fucking cops on me. He's like, we figured things out.
And now he's confronted by the horror of this guy prostituting his 15-year-old daughter.
Because he then offers him up to Cruz immediately. Whereas before you have that moment when he traps the two businessmen in the glass cage, she hides behind Cruz.
Yeah, and he can kind of convince himself, like, okay, maybe this was... He can explain it away to himself.
Not in logical terms, but in just of, like, the feeling out the moment.
But also, there's almost like, maybe I saved her. The fact that I woke the dad up, that he had to come downstairs, that he caught her, she's hiding behind me.
But in fact,
I'm the noble man, and now it's like she's being served up to you on a platter.
But one detail I really, really love is when he goes to the diner in a string of great diners in this movie to inquire about Nick Nightingale. And the woman who works at the diner next to the Club Sonata where he plays knows where he's staying.
Yeah.
Which is like, what's been going on here?
This weird New York is a small town.
Well, it's also, you know, maybe his pants are a small town.
Hey. It is so funny for how much this movie gets clocked with this, like the artificial New York thing. The few establishing shots that do exist as a kid who grew up in
like Park Avenue,
Manhattan, right? Yeah. But there's like they go to 11th and University at one point, which is very close to where I grew up and stuff.
Right.
Thank you. It has like real.
That's right. He goes to Grey Dog and he gets number 7.
It was like my dad trying to get the recession special.
Where does he get the pound cake from?
I don't know.
Dean DeLuca, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
But I was
dreaming
every time.
It's funny to show up to pound cake where a sex worker Works.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's very.
He should have brought the pound cake to the orgy.
Yeah.
Heard there's some pounding going on.
I mean, do you think they would have treated him differently if he brought snacks?
That actually, if he was like, what's the second best food? I don't know, but I have this pound cake. Oh,
so,
go to that room.
I'm starving.
There's some really good stuff going on in
4
that 4
a.m. I'm high as hell. Pass it over.
Yeah, not like that idiot who brought the chastity.
You know how much fucking incense I've been breathing?
I appreciate that, Griffin.
Thank you. No, I was just going to say, the like 6 establishing shots of real New York that do exist in this movie felt like really...
They're jarring.
No, but for me, I was like time capsule shit where I'm like, oh, you actually, in a very clean, wide shot held for a few seconds, have a perfect snapshot of what this block looked like exactly 23 years ago.
Yeah.
He goes...
The most real New York.
He does what I would not do, I gotta be honest, which is he drives back to the orgy house.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Ben's notes.
Ben's notes are very
Usually Ben writes his notes on a yellow legal pad. Today, it looks like the scribblings of a serial killer. It looks like Mr. Detective I left you all the clues.
He just wrote, forget your inquiries, which are completely useless.
Keep on going.
And,
give up your inquiries. I mean, I
he underlined Fidelio and circled it 40 times. Alan Cum is doing
something here.
Okay. I like calling him Alan Cum.
The fear, I just think it's so impressive and scary.
What's your porn name? Alan Cum.
Alan Cum, yes. To hand a typed
Richard Seaman.
Be quiet. You shut up. I should hand him a note. Just a typed Times New Roman
note. They had it waiting with his name on it.
He's going to fucking show us. Get the
GTFO.
Notes. Yeah, right. So scary.
Yeah.
Then he goes to see Domino.
Yeah.
I guess sort of doing the thing of like, maybe I should have just had sex with the beautiful woman who offered herself to me.
Right. I could have ended my night in the normal.
Guinness Book of World Record breaking time is in a sexual entanglement with her from the moment he opens the door.
Yes.
I mean, he is like across the precipice, and I'd say like 3 split seconds later is face to face.
It's the moment where it feels like he's finally getting into this idea where it's like, does everyone want to fuck me? Am I a guy who can walk into any room and just immediately enact upon people their greatest desires?
Right.
And she's like, I look, I'm attracted to you, but you don't understand. I'm about to give you terrible news.
Right.
His timing could not be worse.
Right. So Domino had just learned that she's HIV positive. She's not there. Sally, her roommate, is there, played by Faye Masterson.
Yeah.
And then
Cruz is he's still in the fun flirtation mode with her when she's like, I gotta tell you something.
I mean, he's trying to like get that innocence that's sort of like joie de vivre back.
And they hold on this like sort of high angle over the shoulder shot of him getting the news, and he's grinning like a fucking doofus because he thinks she's gonna tell him something salacious. And him just being stuck there with this dumb smirk on his face like a fucking goober while she drops the HIV bomb. And it's like, he knows he didn't sleep with her.
Right.
He knows he isn't contagious, but it's this immediate like sliding door.
But it's also this immediate of like fuck, like I really need to think about what I have going with my life.
Right.
Like what I need to get, like and we need to go have a conversation.
Just this like very sobering splash of reality of, the idea of mysterious sex partners. It's like, no, they have lives and problems and struggles. And some of those struggles are created by sex. You can't just go around and fuck people. Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I mean, it's not anti, like a sex negative movie, but it is saying that like you fuck around, you find out. Like choices that you make in life have consequences.
Which was the working title for this movie.
That was the title for like 30 years. Yeah. They just changed it at the last minute. But the choices you make have these like far-reaching complications and consequences that you will never really be able to know, and that there are those that come from binding yourself to another person in a monogamous relationship, and there are those that come from doing the opposite of
these
that.
people exist beyond just being objects of your desire. These signposts of temptation, whether you give into them or not.
Yes, and then of course the last thing before he goes to see Ziegler is that he finds Mandy's body. Mandy, the person from the bathroom at the start of the movie. And so then he goes to see Ziegler, and this is really my favorite scene.
But wait, what about the walking in the piano when he's getting
when he's getting followed? Yeah. It's pretty good,
dude. If I was walking by myself
and you heard that
piano, I would shit my fucking
Yorkie Ligeti's standing behind you on a little piano.
They're only playing brown notes. Yeah,
truly.
And there's what was I going to say? The morgue, right? And there's that moment where he like leans in to kiss her. Maybe, like, and he stops himself, but it's this like really in dialogue with the reality or lack thereof in the situation. Like he's trying to force himself into feeling a realness that didn't come through to him when he saw that she had died in the paper. And like there's it's really
the double header with hearing the Domino thing, where it's like he doesn't even hear that from her. She immediately becomes an abstraction to him. He knows he's probably never going to see her again. Right. Now this other woman is dead. He can never speak to her again. You know,
and I just like I love the cutaway to the morgue worker who's just like looking down at the floor, being just like, I don't know, man.
Right. But like he needs Ziegler to tell him not to worry about it, right? Yeah. Like that's what I love about this scene so much. Is he's angry,
to be relieved of this,
and he wants answers, and he's fucked up. But he kind of wants Ziegler to be like, look, that line where he's like, her door was locked from the inside. Cops said suicide. And you're like, oh, wow, you really know the specifics of this case.
Yeah.
Like she died like 8 minutes ago.
Yeah, what the fuck? But
she's a junkie. You know, you saw me injecting shit into her and then fucking her brains out.
God. Podcasting her brains out.
It's so
Snowball.
He's so scary and effective in this scene. Him like playing with the pool table.
It's this thing we're fucking Sydney Pollack just explains to you how it is.
Yes.
It's just one of the greatest special effects in the last 40 years of cinema.
One of the creepiest things is like he's playing pool by himself and he's just like, Tom Cruise is like, I'll just watch. And it's like these two adult men of like vast power, one of them in particular, are just like, watch me play this whole
It's also like, do you play? And he's like, no, not really. This rich person thing of like, I guess I just need to have a billions table.
Right, I guess I've got so many damn rooms. Right. There should be a billiards room, just like Mr. Body from Clue. I gotta be better than Mr. Body.
They should call Sydney Pollack Mr. Body.
They should have called him. Well, he's got one.
I do just watch this and I'm like, can I just like jump forward 20 years?
You're really desperate to get that Pollack
as an
barrel.
Actor,
it's not a guarantee.
As an actor, though. I don't want to be fucking 33.
Like,
I want to be 55.
I'm not taking for granted that I'm just going to age magically into that bearish body that he's got. I'm going to have to work for it.
You're going to have to work for it. That's the thing. And it's like, it's hard
Pollack
work
probably
I don't want to go through.
Played a lot of golf, right? You know, I feel like he was one of those guys who did kind of like rich guy
maybe
activities.
He had really strong forearms.
Yeah, right.
This scene, the energy of the scene, the rhythms of the scene, it's like there is that sort of magic to it where it feels like a piece of music and it's just it all flows so beautifully and you remember like you would a great song, like every line from it sort of bonds to your memory in a way that
he's incredible. It's so inscrutable because it does feel like he's shifting between like, you need to believe me, I'm actually giving you the truth now, and sometimes emphatically explaining something to him that he knows is what Cruise wants to hear so that he doesn't have to worry about this anymore.
Exactly. Just
sometimes
to get it out of his head.
Absolutely feels like Pollack knows this is bullshit and knows that he knows it's bullshit, but now I've given you the ability to deny it.
Because he's saying like it was a charade and also she just went and died of an overdose minutes later. Like, and it's just sort of like, am I supposed to buy that?
I believe him.
And that's the thing. He's such an effective actor.
Right. Well, because he wants to do the same thing that Bill was doing in his own way in less violent terms earlier in the movie, which is be the hero, be like the person who's pulling him up saying like, it's okay, I'm saving you. And also, exert power over him and say, I'm scaring the shit out of you at the same time.
And Nick is fine. But that's the thing. He's also like, Nick is fine, that prick. Yeah, but then he's also like, you don't understand how scary these people are.
Right.
And so what am I supposed to walk out of there thinking? Like, oh yeah, like they're the scariest people on earth, but if you betray them, like, no big deal. They'll rough you up a little bit, maybe. And so when he gets home and he sees the mask on the pillow and he starts crying, Cruise fucking,
right, because Rachel Bezos charged him extra for the missing.
He sure did, because
$25 is a pretty good price.
It's a nice mask.
Every time that mask fucking look great.
I know that's an ornate mask.
Yeah, but it probably fell off the back of a truck, a Venetian mask truck. Knowing that guy, why is the mask there? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just this sort of like perfect, like
you don't
moment
really
of awareness
think about her,
and shame
digging around the apartment and like looking for
what's this?
Like looking for stuff for Christmas. It doesn't matter.
But him crying is just so cathartic.
And like, what would you infer if you came home and saw a mask on your partner's, or you found that mask in your partner's space, in your apartment. Like, what would you...
I would have some very excited questions. I'd be like, tell me all about the What did you do?
You'd be like Griffin when his parents came home from a movie when he was a kid. Like, tell me
everything. It truly, I would remember if they'd go out for a movie night and it was like, I'm supposed to be in bed at this point, the movie's long. I would stay awake just so I could get the 15-minute rundown of what's your feeling on Titanic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's not Nicole Kidman's vibe in this scene, I would say. She was she has questions, she has concerns. But I love that cut so much when she goes, just tell me everything. And then it's like a hard cut to her face, like completely bloodshot.
Yeah.
Having been up all night. Waiting for their daughter to wake up and be like, what is happening?
It is a funny...
Her daughter, by the way, their daughter, blissfully oblivious.
I was going to say, it's funny how much of a non-presence she is in this movie, but you also have to imagine logistically, much like the AI thing.
They had to do it early.
Right, we have to do it early, and we got to just get a couple things with the daughter.
Right. This daughter can't be 13 years old all of a sudden.
She graduated from college by the time they were finished filming.
They go to FAO Schwartz.
Right, sure, which is, what's the name of this? Hemmings?
It's Hanley's, right?
Hanley's, sorry.
Yeah, isn't it Hanley's?
I think it's Hanley's, yeah. But doubling for FAO Schwartz. I love that there were Spice Girl dolls in the back.
Hamleys. Sorry, I did go. Hamleys is the British FAO Schwartz. I'm sure it's awful now, but like,
I've
when I was a
been
kid,
right?
I remember my dad being like, "Let's go. It's the most famous toy store in Britain." Yeah, right.
And obviously, FAO Schwartz doesn't exist in the form it did back then, but it's a place that is very distinctive. Iconographic, has been used in movies like Big.
Yeah.
You know that this doesn't look anything like
it
FAO
looks
Schwartz.
like I've been. Yeah, you're right.
There are the Spice Girls dolls in the background, which I love because it's one of the only things that stamps this movie to a specific period in time culturally. When they're having the pot fight and she gets up and starts like yelling at him, on the bookcase behind her, there's like her stereo system.
Novelization.
But there are also like 6 VHS tapes, and I was scrubbing through it trying to make out.
But you couldn't?
I couldn't, and I was like, I can tell it's a fucking Paramount. I can see the typeface. I almost thought one of them was Rain Man, and I was like, is he putting a Cruise movie in there by accident on purpose? But I couldn't make out what they were.
2001 soundtrack in Clockwork Orange.
Yeah. I just love the Spice Girls thing is the one concrete thing where you're like, this is where they stay in a relationship.
He knew they were going to last forever.
He did.
He was like, these guys are never breaking up.
Just like Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
Right. And all the orgy rooms were actually named. There's the ginger room,
the Spice
baby. Well, no, the baby room. That's distressing.
David.
All right. Well, it's weird that there's baby Spice. Okay, let's be honest.
Yeah.
That was weird, and everyone seemed to sort of just fucking not think about
like
it.
a baby.
Well, that's why it was weird.
Yeah.
It was like, what am I supposed to take away from this?
Yeah.
Anyway, he apologizes. He's told her everything at this point.
Sure.
We're assuming. I mean, he says he's going to tell her everything.
Right.
It would be great if there was actually a scene where he was like, then there was this Slovenian guy trying to sell me a cloak.
She smokes another joint. She's like, dude, this is crazy.
This movie.
You did this all in one night.
Bolero is the what form of chimera?
You ripped $100 bill, you asshole.
And
that's the one part she was really disgusting.
Yeah, I thought we
come
raised
on,
you
just
better
give him the
than that.
100.
Did you give him tape? So he had to then go home, buy tape, retape it himself.
I didn't have any tape on me. I only had hundreds.
That's
and of
what
course,
the sequel should pick up on.
The guy.
With that guy.
No,
the sequel should end. The last shot of the post credit should be like Airplane, where he's like, I'm gonna give this guy 10 more minutes. Right? That would be funny.
There should be a post credits.
Right?
Yeah, like he goes back to the cabbie after he leaves the orgy, and the cabbie's like, so how was it?
Right. What are they doing? There's something I need to do as soon as possible. What's that fuck?
One of the great
cut to black.
final
which
lines.
is shot, which a detail I love so much is that it's one of the only scenes in the movie and one of the rare scenes in Kubrick's filmography that he shoots just very standard over-the-shoulder coverage. And it's sort of this return to normalcy in a way of like a back to happy upper-class marriage, without any funny business going on.
But I also feel like this movie has more organic compositions than Kubrick had been trending, right? You look at Full Metal Jacket right before this, and it's like everything is so perfectly composed and symmetrical and tight and sharp and clean. And it's like this movie is fuzzier, it's looser. He briefly considered using the Barry Lyndon lenses for this because he knew he wanted to have a similar lighting scheme.
Right, the warm glow.
And it was partially that film speeds had increased so much that the lenses weren't appropriate anymore. But the other thing was he was like, I want to have camera movements. I want to be looser in this. I don't want to have to be constrained by these technical limitations. I remember a film teacher saying to me at a time where I still thought, oh, the line on this movie is that it sucks, and anyone who thinks it's good is an idiot, because I was an idiot. Her saying, like, I don't really like Kubrick because I find his stuff too hermetic and controlled. You know, the obvious Kubrick complaint that people throw out. And she's like, the one I like is Eyes Wide Shut because it's the only one of his movies that doesn't just feel like a series of photographs to me. And I've always thought about that, where it does feel like his most sort of organic movie since The Killing.
Yeah, I can see that. I also just want to say that my read on the end of the movie is not that it's a return to normal necessarily. I mean, there's like a feeling of destruction, a feeling of renewal. It reminds me a lot, like the more recent analog I think of is the ending of Before Midnight, of like we are coming to grips about what it means to be together as a couple.
Right.
And the ins and outs, that the fact that desire exists in marriage and outside of marriage, and this idea that, like, you know, we are still being people, but we are going to sort of choose to forge ahead, knowing the perils involved. I mean,
well, like any successful marriage is essentially like 6 or 7 different marriages. When people stay married for decades,
it evolves.
They talk about that. They're like, every 7 years, the whole structure of the relationship changes. And, you know, if you're lucky, when you both change, you find a new way to be simpatical in your current
But it's
forms.
also a film sort of about how when you are just with one person for the rest of your adult life, every small corner of darkness, every shadow is magnified so large. Every mysterious element that you discover and would have assumed didn't exist because you knew your partner inside and out is suddenly like a cataclysmic urgency.
Yeah.
And, you know, that is sort of the void that he gets trapped in.
Wait, you think people can pick up on that stuff over time? Like,
you're safe, stuff you're safe. Don't worry.
Comes out.
That Bones hat is pulling all the attention.
No one's looking at your eyes.
Eyes Wide Shut, 5 out of 5, A+.
6 out of 5.
My final take.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's my favorite or Barry Lyndon is my favorite.
I'm giving this the edge.
It's got seniority for you as well. If
it does. I mean, who knows if Barry Lyndon will unfold for me in further viewings in a different way. But it's what you said earlier. Like, it's that thing that is so rare where you find a movie that it feels like every time you come to it, you find new things in it, both because you've changed and there are so many different prisms at which to view the thing. It's kind of, that's that tier of like, the greatest films are the ones in which it will mean something different to you anytime you watch it, based on what mood you're in, where you are in your life, all that sort of stuff.
Like, it explains to you, back to you, sort of where you are in your life and who you've become. And that is, I think, an added value, like a utilitarian value almost. It's just like it remembers for you who you are and who you were and who you've been. It's fascinating for that.
It's an incredible film. A stat I will remember forever is that 1999, obviously this historic year for American film, right? This is sort of not last gasp,
it's
but
a big old
year, auteur year where movies were at the center of the cultural discourse and everything. But 99, a particularly big blockbuster summer, right? It was a summer with like just beloved populist favorites, and even things like Phantom Menace that were, you know, complicated. Massive success, obviously. The stat I remember was that summer was so successful, Eyes Wide Shut was only one of 2 movies to open between May and August that opened at number 1 and didn't hit $100 million.
Like final gross, right?
Yeah. Every other film that opened to number 1 was like soaring to success.
It sank quite quickly.
Can you name the other one?
What's the other one?
The Haunting. The 2 Todd Field movies.
Well,
but it spoke in both cases. There was like hype, great trailer. People saw it, disappointed. Don't go see it.
And similar quality movies with similar care behind the camera.
Movies had longer legs back then.
No, they did. But also, like, a lot of the movies we're talking about are
Blair Witch, Runaway
hits.
Bride, Sixth Sense, Phantom Menace.
Let's play the box office game.
Okay.
July 16th, 1999.
Yeah.
Eyes Wide Shut, number 1, $21 million. I mean, not nothing.
No, and once again, sold on nothing other than what the fuck is this movie?
But it is cruise.
The 2 biggest movie stars, this elusive master filmmaker who's dead.
Yeah.
And did he leave behind?
There's a lot of hype.
The ultimate elusiveness.
Just a true mystery box movie. Opening at 21 million, very healthy. Insane to imagine a movie like this having this level of excitement.
$21 million.
I mean, Don't Worry, Darling is kind of...
It is the analog. It is
where you're just like, everyone's just so obsessed by the idea of what happened with this fucking movie. What is this fucking thing? And I imagine that movie will also drop off in a similar way.
There was initially at the like 8 news cycles of "Don't Worry, Darling" nonsense ago. There was a lot of talk about the sex in that movie. And
it is kind of the only analog, just not an analog.
Number 2, speaking of sex, is a sexy comedy.
Do you think Stanley was like jealous of Will Smith having Big Willie Weekend and was like, I'm going to have Big Stanley Weekend? Yes. July 16th is Big Stanley Weekend.
Yes, absolutely.
I will hold claim on this. I will release one new film every 17 years.
Right. He did famously refer to himself as Big Stanley.
Big Stan.
What number 2?
Sexy,
it's a sexy
comedy. American Pie?
Directed by a friend of ours. It's American Pie. In its second week.
Jim's dad wiggling those eyebrows.
Absolutely. It's only dropped.
Jim, you see this eyes wide shut picture?
Jim's dad was at the orgy.
Jim's dad was there. You could see his eyebrows were peeking over the mask. Oh, boy. Back in my day.
Dropping only 28% in its second week. It's
another
a huge
example,
hit.
This is what I'm saying. These movies in 99, they played. They stayed in theaters. They were word of mouth hits.
Number 3 is less of a word of mouth hit, but it was a modest hit of the time. It's new this week. It's a horror comedy.
It's a horror comedy.
Idle Hands? No, that was a bomb.
No.
That was 1999.
It's a horror comedy. Huh. What kind of you know what? I don't think I've done this before. I'm gonna ask for the box office game hint. The thing I find most useful doing the box office game online. What studio released it?
The studio is 20th Century Fox.
It's not Ravenous.
No, Ravenous made like negative $4.
These are also great horror comedies of 1999.
That thing was released in like a sewer on Venus.
It's new this weekend, July horror comedy 1999.
I can give you a further elaboration on its genre.
Is it like a Kevin Williamson adjacent post-Scream thing? No. Give me a further elaboration.
It's a creature film.
Oh, is it Lake Placid?
Lake Placid.
There we go.
Bill Pullman, Bridget Fonda, Oliver Platt,
yeah,
a.k.a. The Big Three.
Yes.
David E. Kelly's script. It's a big crock.
Forget that it's as much of a comedy as it is.
It is. It is a comedy.
It is.
I mean, it's a
No,
whatever.
it is. Yeah. It is.
And it was sort of like a mild hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Deep Blue Sea the same summer?
Yeah.
That's August.
Yeah. What a fucking
and
summer.
that movie was congressionally mandated to be released in August. No movie has ever been more released in August than Deep Blue Sea.
But that's the thing.
They
Deep
made
Blue
the shark's
Sea is
brains
like,
bigger and they got smarter.
They were like, we need every high school lifeguard to fully cooked his brain on pot for 2 months before he sees Deep Blue Sea.
Deep Blue Sea is one of those movies where you're like, how much are they in on the joke or not?
Right.
And Lake Placid, you're like, I'm surprised there are this many jokes.
Yes, this is heavy on jokes.
Yeah.
Stellan Skarsgård's death scene in Deep Blue Sea is just why
there's a lot of good death scenes.
Yeah.
LL Cool J put a song out.
Yeah.
Deepest Bluest. My head is like a shark's fin.
My head is like a shark's fin. I've forgotten a lot of stuff in my life. Talk about cooking your brain with weed. But
he just pointed to Sims.
Remember, my head is like a shark's fin. I think about it once a year. It's the most insane lyric that's ever been written down and then turned into a song.
Talk about things you probably forgot in your life, Ben.
Yeah.
Someone dug up, this will happen where people will listen to old episodes of the show and then post on social media like, I listened to this episode from 5 years ago. The boys predicted this thing.
Uh-huh.
In our Mrs. Peregrine episode, you were talking about how much you liked the character that was the girl with the secret mouth in the back of her head.
Yeah.
And you were like, they should have done more with her. It should have its own personality and should be nasty like a Venom. Yeah. You essentially pitched Malignant 5 years ago.
You Malignanted.
Well, I mean, should I try and get paid for that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Hit up James Wan.
Yeah.
All right.
Number 4, the
spoilers
box
for Malignant.
HBO Max famously happy to just spread money left
They
and right.
love paying out.
Yeah, they love it. Number 4, the box office is a straight up comedy with a movie star comedy.
It's a movie star. It's not
been
Runaway
out for
Bride.
a month. No.
Oh, okay. So it's a June comedy with a major movie star. No, that's August.
It's made $134 million.
Is it Notting Hill? No.
Notting Hill has made 107 and has been out for 2 months.
Okay. It's not a Carey. It's not a Williams.
No.
You said it's a major star, but is it a major comedy star?
Yes.
Is it Eddie?
No.
It's not Eddie. It's not a Robin.
Head is like a shark's
It's not a Carey.
No one.
Head is
LL
like
Cool J is not in this film.
Then major star. Oh. Is it Austin Powers: The Spy Who Shagged Me?
No.
Fuck.
That's number 11.
A movie that at the time had the second highest grossing opening weekend of all time.
Yes.
That's number 7. Okay. Number 2.
Number 11.
This movie is number what at the box office?
4.
It's been out for a month.
Yes.
It's up to 130.
Yep. Its total gross is 163.
Oh, it's Big Daddy.
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy.
With Adam Sandler.
That movie got the Jon Stewart bump.
Yes.
Good
much like The Faculty. Kind of I just remember it being so fucking treacly at the end. But that's sort of the Sandler thing.
Works for me.
Yeah.
I think it's a good balance of it.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
You've also talked about, since becoming a father, not having rewatched it, but how much.
A big daddy.
Since becoming, you are a big daddy.
Yeah.
One must admit.
I won't lie. Look at the size of this lad.
No, I feel like you've talked about, since becoming a parent, without having rewatched the movie, how much the McDonald's scene brings.
The McDonald's scene, it's immediately what I thought of again. This is horseshit!
Right.
And then he starts crying because it's like, I think about that a lot. But now, of course, you can get breakfast all day at McDonald's, so the scene is irrelevant.
The setup to that scene is like they miss it.
They miss it by like 10 minutes or something.
Less, and it's like he stops to tie his shoes a couple times. Yeah. He has to pee, and then he wants to give money to Buscemi, his crazy eyes. Right. So it's like there are all these windows where he almost makes it, and then he just cannot fucking deal with letting this kid down.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Sure. Number 5 at the box office is kind of a famous flop, but it still has made 94 on its way to 113. It's an action film.
Wild Wild West.
It's Wild Wild West.
Big Willie Weekend.
Because the Big Willie Weekend had recently happened. A movie I was so excited for. And when I saw it, I was like, I guess I don't like everything.
And just one of those movies also where like, truly from scene one, you're like, vibes are off. It starts about as bad as it ever gets.
But Kenneth Branagh gives a really reserved and nuanced performance.
Great performance. Rooted in the history and culture of the American South.
It was confusing because I remember being in the theater and going like, did they accidentally switch to a reel of a documentary? Are we watching a Wiseman film suddenly?
It's Ken Burns.
Yeah.
I got in the editing room and put a spin on it.
His name's Dr. Loveless because he has no penis.
He's got
and
no
so everything he builds overcompensates.
He drives a giant mechanical spider.
He's got the giant pneumatic pumping thing.
Yes, he does. Number 6, just to give you some other ones, new this week is Rick Famuyiwa's The Wood.
Oh, good movie.
Which is a pretty good movie.
Maybe you make another movie challenge.
I know. Remember he was going to do The Flash for a second?
He was going to do Flash. It felt like, right, now he's in the fucking Star Wars TV rotation.
Which he does actually a pretty good
His
job
episodes
on
are good. I'm just like, I want him to make a movie. He's
Number
a good
7,
filmmaker.
Tarzan.
Yeah, fine film. I think that movie's
in my heart. I haven't seen it since theater.
My family.
Number 8 is
I didn't see Tarzan because I was just like, I'm seeing Eyes Wide Shut now. Like the Tarzan days are over.
I went and saw Tarzan and was like, I feel like I'm ready to watch Eyes Wide Shut.
Me too.
Even as a
why am I doing
baby,
this?
I was just a baby who likes dumb baby shit. I was like,
Number 8 is a little film called Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace. Number 9 is
it's weird that they never made a sequel to that, considering how big of a hit it was.
Number 9 is the a genre of movie from the 90s, like Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
The nasty sort of crime thriller. The General's Daughter is the movie. One of those movies where it's like, this is like just kind of 20% nastier than it could be 10 years ago.
Also, that movie is nastier than it needs to be. I mean, it's
It's a little too nasty.
Violent, ugly movie
that
about
made
rape.
But $100 million. This is the 99 was just like everything.
And this is the thing. It's number 9, and it's made 87. It's going to get to 102.
Yeah.
It's just going to fucking churn
these
away.
These movies like legged it out for 4 months, and you're seeing so many like none of these films are cannibalizing each other.
Number 10, new this week, Muppets from Space. Horrible opening.
Yeah.
It's opening below the 5th weekend of The General's Daughter.
People get mad at me for saying this. A bad film. I think a bad film is the only Muppet movie I don't like.
The only other interesting thing about this box office is that new this week on 27 screens making $1.5 million. The Blair Witch Project. Holy shit.
Holy shit.
Wow.
I was about to get real obsessed with that movie.
That movie fucking rules. Sort of the opposite of a blank check movie, and we would never do those careers.
But maybe we
should just do it.
We could do the Blair Witch trilogy on Patreon. That would be fun to do.
What a weird! You guys could recreate the Blair Witch Project.
I wonder what it would be like.
The blank check project.
If I might be too scared of that. Yeah, if we went in the woods and Ben was like whatever making weird noises outside the tent.
You know how the whole thing with that movie was like they made this for only $40,000.
Right.
What if we gave ourselves the opposite challenge? We have to figure out a way to make our episode expensive enough that it costs $40,000.
The only thing left to do is rank Stanley Kubrick, and then I really have to go. And we also have to figure out
finally
what
followed the. Oh yeah, we got to make Avatar plans. We're gonna be talking Tar soon.
So you guys are going back to Pandora?
Well, I guess at this point it will have already.
It'll have already happened. We're going to be on the big picture to talk Avatar, so we want to go see it.
Yeah.
Before we do
we
that,
we got to go back to Pandora. I'm trying to convince David to go see it in 4DX.
We can. I think we can do that. It's just we have to do it in the daytime. That's all.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll make the plan. We'll make the plans right after this.
We're going to do it right after this.
I have 40X passes burning a hole in my wallet.
I don't even know what that means, but okay.
Just meant when I saw Hobbs and Shaw, the spritzer wasn't working.
Okay, I'm going to give you my Kubrick.
I finally did the thing I should have been doing this entire time where I've been keeping the fucking letterbox list and updating after every episode.
All right.
So I have a proper list that I'm not making up on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do yours first.
You want me to do first?
Yeah, why not?
Number 13, Fear and Desire. Although I do agree with the sort of context, I think we did not give it in the episode that Alex Raspberry put in our head, where it's like, it is important for that film to exist to humanize him, to make his other accomplishments more impressive, because it's not like this guy was just touched with genius and knew how to make movies better than everyone else.
Ben, did we get to 3 hours?
Yeah, we're over 3 hours, for fuck's sake.
Number
Jesus
12,
Christ.
Lolita.
Yes.
Number 11, Killer's Kiss.
Yeah.
Number 10, Spartacus.
We have the same bottom 4.
Okay, now here's where we're going to deviate.
Okay.
Number 9, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying.
Wow, you have it at 9?
I just don't love that movie.
Wow.
It's not one of my things.
Okay.
Number 8, The Killing.
Me too.
Number 7, Full Metal Jacket.
Okay.
Number 6, Clockwork Orange.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, Paths of Glory. Number 4, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Number 3, The Shining. Number 2, Barry Lyndon. Number 1, Darkman. Eyes Wide Shut.
We have very similar lists.
Yeah, I imagine just.
I'll do mine top to bottom. Just
Jacket.
It's but really,
yeah.
I'm 1, Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
2, Eyes Wide Shut. 3, 2001. 4, The Shining. So we have the same
That's
top
the
4.
Top tier.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
5, Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah.
6, Paths of Glory. 7, Clockwork Orange. 8, The Killing. 9, Full Metal Jacket. 10, Spartacus. 11, Killer's Kiss. 12, Lolita. 13,
Killing
Desire.
disrespect.
Pretty good to put it below Clockwork Orange. What are you
I put it above
about?
Doctor Strangelove.
It's a great movie.
I think it rules.
Killing rules.
Yeah.
Dare I?
Yeah, it's great. Right. I'm not beefing with the Killing.
The bottom 3.
It's a Stanley Kubrick list. I'm not putting it like below fucking Dennis Dugan's movies.
I like that Barry's at your top.
Yeah.
That's for me, this miniseries, I got to discover that fucking movie. It's like one of my
Irish liar
favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dress up like fucking Barry for Halloween.
You should.
Yeah.
Every year.
Hat. Yeah. Hell yeah, Ben. Thank you.
I'm sure we talked about extensively in that episode, which is the one we haven't recorded yet, but the experience of getting to watch Ben watch Barry Lyndon was my movie-going experience of the decade.
That rules. I wish I'd been there.
I don't even think I care about my Stanley Kubrick list, so I'll just say Eyes Wide Shut is number 1. The end.
Great.
Well, what do you got?
I mean,
come on.
The rest is all nonsense. Doesn't matter. I have like Eyes, 2001, Shining, Barry Lyndon, The Killing, Strangelove, Paths of Glory, Full Metal Jacket, Clockwork Orange, Lolita, Killer's Kiss, Spartacus, Fear and Desire.
Wow, Spartacus below Killer's Kiss?
Nah.
Olivier's in that
young,
thing.
He was trying.
Sure.
Spartacus doesn't do much for me.
I mean, that's not my genre. It's really arbitrary to me after.
All right,
Eyes.
we're done, but we should announce our
Yes.
next. And we're done with Stan the Man Kubrick, although we're not quite done because we do have to do Barry Lyndon. So it doesn't feel totally
Your
over.
time,
But
Ryan, you listening to this.
For us, we are done
Lyndon's
on this.
the one we haven't done for schedule.
Slightly exhausting, but in sort of increasingly rewarding journey, I would say.
Yeah, I certainly feel like I came to a very different place in my relationship to Stanley and his movies than I did going into this. Where I wasn't dreading doing this, but I was very open about the fact that he's like not one of my guys. And I think we've talked about this, but the episode's recorded wildly out of order. If it feels like the arc of my relationship to him is changing in a backwards and forwards way, it's for that reason. But I feel like I have a much greater appreciation of him, especially with a lot of help to JJ truly helping to demystify a lot of the sort of mythology around him that I always found very exhausting.
True. Shout out JJ.
Yeah.
And now you guys are finally entering the Hong Sang-sooniverse?
No. Oh my God, imagine if we did
Soon, we will.
I really love that one slow zoom, to be clear. I love Hong Sang-soo. No, actually, next week we are talking Fablemans.
Yes.
That's going to be our palate cleanser in between miniseries. It's arriving right at that right time.
Do we have 2 palate cleansers? Or am I missing
Just the one,
Okay.
because Avatar is
Oh,
at the end
sure.
of the
On
year.
the other side of it. Right.
But then after Fablemans, we're going to talk about the career of a great animator who has a new movie coming out. And we've long wanted to do him, and now it's time to do him, right?
Kind of the Stanley Kubrick of animation that it's been
It's taken him a long time.
13 years since his
13
last
years.
film.
Yes.
His
Henry
last film
Selick.
made an unqualified triumph.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, he made Coraline.
We're doing
He sure
Selick. The reason we didn't do Nightmare Before Christmas 4 years ago is because we were waiting for this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Henry Selick, 5 films. 5? 5.
Yes.
Yes. Nightmare, James, Monkey Bone, Coraline Wendell.
They won't let me, they don't like the idea of recording Nightmare in a Hot Topic.
No, but I do want to record James in a giant
graveyard
inside a giant peach. Yes. And then, of course, Wendell and Wild, which is probably about to drop on Netflix right now-ish in mid-November.
It's kind of Halloween. I think it'll.
Okay, so it's already on Netflix.
Yeah.
So in celebration of that, we're doing Selig.
Yes.
And then we're going to do something
finally
else.
a new film, giving you Nightmare Before Christmas in the quarter between Halloween and Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be fun. We're doing someone else, but yes, with a couple interruptions, Fabelmans and Avatar. Fabelmans before, Avatar in the middle.
Correct. And then, next year we're going to have, Knock at the Cabin. We're going to have you want to do Mission Impossible on the main feed, it looks like.
We've covered all the McQuarries. I think we have to. Yeah.
Well, we don't have to, but I'm with it.
I think we have to.
We've got Oppenheimer.
Yes.
We've got Aquaman 2. We might hear from the Maestro. We might ride in the Ferrari. I think that might be 2024.
It's filming right now.
It
depends how long it takes to edit.
It's messed up that you guys aren't going to be going onto the high seas with Napoleon because you've never done Ridley Scott. That feels like something that would be so up your alley.
But isn't that maybe now coming out this year?
A lot of eyebrows.
It's coming out next year.
Okay.
I think. Right?
No, that was not going to happen. It could because Ridley Scott does not waste any time.
Right. Ridley Scott just filmed Napoleon 2 while we had this conversation.
Ben, just quick question. Have you been monkey boned before?
Yeah.
I'm glad we're doing that right during this Fraser-sance too.
I know.
Fraser-sance.
Is that going to be the first Harry Knowles cameo that you guys have discussed?
Honestly, I actually don't think it is. I think we've done one other movie with him, haven't
probably.
we? I don't know.
Yeah. He's in Killer's Kiss, right?
I have an announcement.
Okay.
This is episode 401.
Oh, that's true. We forgot to acknowledge this on the Full Metal Jacket episode because we didn't. No. But yeah, that was the 400th episode.
In honor
this is
of
401.
Eyes Wide Shut filming for 400 days.
Yeah, exactly. And this podcast recording for 400 minutes.
What? We were just talking before we started recording about how we used to record this podcast in a closet.
We sure did.
Yes.
And now we're recording in our own office. And I just wanted to say it's been fun. And
yes, so too bad
it's fun.
See you later. Getting's good.
This office rules.
No, we'll keep doing the show. Nice. We got the first half of 2023 mapped out already. And I think it's a corker.
We sure do for our sins, and it is a corker.
I'll say this: it's a thing we often do where post March Madness winter when we kickstart a new year, David and I often come to the table and go, "You pick one, I pick one." We both knock a long, dreamed upon movie miniseries off of our list, right?
Yeah.
So there's wearing robes. There's a guy pounding his staff.
There's a David pick and a Griffin pick, and they're two, I think, long promised filmmakers on this show. I don't think I know.
You know? And so we'll reveal that later. But that's it. We're done.
Tune next week for The Fabelmans.
Fucking great movie.
I can't wait to watch it.
David doesn't quite like it as much as I do. I mean, but he likes
like it as much as you do. I don't know, but it's
good shit.
It's a keeper.
It's the thing we didn't get to talk about that much in this episode of Jewish filmmakers who still don't really want to put their Jewishness on screen. The self-loathing is completely baked in.
He puts it on screen in The Fabelmans, but it's interesting when
more
he
than
does
most.
not put
It's just interesting to have Armageddon Time and Fabelmans and have both these guys being like, look, we're not going to cast two Jewish.
It's not like my parents were Jewish.
Yeah, come on.
All right, we're done.
We want people to watch
We have to book Avatar. We're done.
Okay. Folks, thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks to Marie Barty for doing our social media and helping produce the show in a myriad of other ways.
Marie.
Thank you, Aunt Marie. Poop pee-pee.
Poop pee-pee forever. Back and forth.
That's a new nickname.
Poop pee-pee?
Yeah, for Marie.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll love that. We'll hear from Marie 6 weeks from now when she's listening to this edit saying, cut it out. I don't want people tweeting poop pee-pee at me.
Or double it. She loves it.
Thank you to JJ Birch, who really built some massive tomes for this miniseries. But it turns out there's a lot of writing about Stanley Kubrick. Thank you to Pat Reynolds, Joe Bowen for our artwork, AJ McKeon, Alex Barron for our editing, Lee Montgomery, the Great American Owl for our theme song. Go to blankcheckpod.com for some links to some real nerdy shit, including the Patreon Blank Check special features. Tune next week for The Fabelmans, as we said, and then Henry Selick after that. And as always, I think David's ready to go back to Pandora and 4DX.